Welcome to all the participants in the public presentations on co-production, co-ownership, and co-benefit practices in social development. The series of presentations that we will have today, and which also be reviewed by our invited panelists, are based on the Capstone project successfully implemented by the first batch of graduate students of the Master in Transdisciplinary and Social Development Program of the Ateneo de Manila University. Our presenters are likewise Asian Peace Builder scholars representing Japan, Thailand, Indonesia, Myanmar, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Philippines, and Vietnam. The capstone projects that delivered development interventions in different localities around developing countries in Asia were designed under the principles of co-production, co-ownership, and co-benefit. The groups, in close collaboration with local partners and under the guidance of academic experts, designed and managed their projects in a span of 9 months. The public presentations are divided into 3 clusters. The first one, the Human Rights, Peace, Settlement, and Violent Extremism cluster. The second one, the Community-Based Tourism cluster. And the third one, the Agriculture, Youth, and Rural Development cluster. And to introduce to us the first cluster of presenters, I'll turn you over to my co-host, Dr. Alfred Public. Dr. Public is a faculty member in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology of the Ateneo de Manila University and the Director of the Anthropological and Sociological Initiatives of the Ateneo. He currently serves as Research Coordinator of the School of Social Sciences. His research interests include the archaeology of Southeast Asia and Europe, the anthropology of hunter-gatherers, early human migration and colonization of remote islands, and the technological and socio-cultural aspects of human adaptation and interaction with changing environments and ecosystems during and after the ice ages. So, hello, Alfred.
Hello, and thank you very much, Melise, for your kind introduction. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our meeting. Let me introduce the Human Rights, Peace, Settlement, and Violent Extremism cluster. So 3 presentations comprise this cluster, and the first presentation on Mandala, website for monitoring and data analyzing civil repression in Indonesia, will be delivered by Aldo Marciano Caligis, Yuji Nemoto, and Yoshiko Miyashita. Academic supervisors are Dr. Mary Raqueles and Dr. Prior Placino. Then the second presentation will be community-driven conflict analysis for effective prevention of violent extremism among Sri Lankan youth. This will be delivered by Suyit Shivanta Ratnayake Hetiachi Keragalage and Gotawata Isuru Madhushanka Lianage, as well as Kasumi Moritani. Academic supervisors here are Dr. Glenda Wui and Dr. Enrique Leviste. Then the third presentation will be Bobobai ni Kalinga para Adkapia. Documentation of the roles of women in Bodong will be delivered by Mark Articulo, Miki Sakiyama, and Atao Rasak. Academic supervisors are Dr. Mari Raquelis and Dr. Enrique Leviste. Let me now introduce the panelists. Panelists are Mr. Willy Torres, who is an anthropologist and former program manager working closely with local partners on conflict resolution projects. He considers himself a talent scout looking for ordinary folks doing extraordinary projects in the service of their communities. He's currently a PhD candidate at the School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution, now Carter School, in George Mason University doing peace building evaluation for his dissertation. The second panelist is Dr. Jose Joel Canudai. Dr. Canudai is the chair of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology. He specializes in visual and material anthropology, anthropology of conflict and displacement, rooted cosmopolitanism and interreligious relations, as well as anthropological practice and historical narratives. He holds a PhD in anthropology from the University of Oxford, and he is a National Book Award winner. He's also the editor-in-chief of the journal Social Transformations, Journal of the Global South. Our panelists have been invited to review the manuscripts and give inputs to our presenters so they can further enhance their manuscript and the project collaboration in the area of sustainability and impact. Okay, I think that's it from my side, and we can now begin with the presentations.
Sorry, in the second part, there's no my name, but Shivanta, Maduka, Kasumi, and Emi as well. Sorry for interrupt. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, and my apologies for that.
No worries. It's okay. I'm in the second presentator, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. So I will add you to the list.
Appreciate it.
All right, shall we start? Yuji, could you please share our presentation?
Okay.
All right, good day, everyone. Today, the Capstone project that consists of myself, Aldo Caligis, my colleague Yoshiko Miyashita, and Yuji Nemoto will present our Capstone project's journey from the commencement to the conclusion and everything in between in a presentation titled Implementing a Community-Led Data Collection and Visualization Toolkit for a Human Rights Monitoring and Reporting Website, a case study of the Mandala website in Indonesia. Next slide, please. So the following is the structure of the presentation. My colleagues and I will present each section alternately. We'll start by presenting the introduction, and later towards the end, if we still have the time, we will showcase the output of our Capstone project. Next slide, please. And the introduction. So Indonesia has a long history of human rights violations, which gave birth to a vibrant human rights NGO scene. However, efforts to establish an independent, accessible, and participatory monitoring and reporting platform have been scarce because independent institutions such as state auxiliary bodies, NGOs, and media, they're working in silos. Contrast, one of the oldest Indonesian human rights NGOs, and Tempo, one of the most prominent Indonesian media companies, are trying to bridge the gap by building the Mandala website. The Mandala website aims to encourage victims, witnesses, and counsels alike to file complaints and, upon verification, visualize the complaints to increase public awareness about past and ongoing atrocities. The Capstone project aimed to support the initiation of the website development phase, particularly in creating a website skeleton document that consists of a wireframe, a branding guideline, and a pitch deck. Next slide, please. And how did we approach the Capstone project? We combined the community organizing and community development approach with the co-creation and co-production principles. As a mindset, the COCD approach requires external actors such as ourselves to support local partners' self-help initiatives through empowerment activities. Additionally, the co-creation and co-production principles demand the participation of local partners during the project design phase and the implementation phase. We applied these concepts by organizing a continuous assumption scrutinization cycle throughout the Capstone project's phases that you could see in the chart on the presentation, through means such as individual interviews, focus group discussions, and co-producing the skeleton document. And now my colleague Yoshi will explain the project design phase.
Thanks, Aldo. In the project design phase, we changed its output several times by applying the methodology Aldo explained, in addition to consultations with the Capstone project supervisors. First, we changed its focus. Instead of building a website itself, to creating monitoring and reporting standards, which are data crowdsourcing, data classification and analysis, and data visualization. This is because we analyzed that a fully functioning website requires resources that we could not afford, and the project supervisors also recommended in this way. Second, we utilized the theory of change to clarify the objectives and outcomes of the overall project. At the assumption stage, we analyzed by desk research and pre-interviews with our local partners that a gender-based perspective needs to be mainstream because existing monitoring and reporting data sets of Contrast and another NGO, Amnesty International Indonesia, lacked illustrating the nexus between human rights violations and gender-based violence. Also, creating a security guideline was added as an output based on its supervisor's recommendation concerning the data and website security. Third, next slide, please. We organized TOC scrutinization meetings in both individual and group with local partners. At the meetings, local partners suggested several comments and changes regarding gender, language, and marketing strategy. For instance, mainstreaming the gender perspective would require more resources and a longer timeline. Also, the language for the output section needs to be more tangible and relevant to a web building phase. Furthermore, a marketing strategy is important for the sustainability of the Mandala web project, especially during the phase where funding is needed. As a result, the outputs of the project became creating a data collection and data visualization toolkits that consist of wireframe, a pitch deck, and a branding guideline to set up a human rights monitoring and reporting website. This entire scrutinization process brought several positive impacts. One is building the co-ownership awareness to local partners and opening discussions by the co-creation principle. The other is reducing risks and setting effective workflow, not only outputs, but specific activities and objectives, and a realistic goal of the project. Next, please.
Thank you, Yoshiko-san. Thank you, Aldo. So for the implementation phase, we create a wireframe at this point. The wireframe is the basic design for the website. We utilize the Figma, one of the online collaborative design tools, to create a Mandala website wireframe. This is also a suggestion from our local partners, website developer, because that we thought we better to use what they already know. So that's why we follow to use the Figma. We also use the Figma for pitch deck and the branding part, which the Yoshiko-san will explain later. This Figma, on the left-hand side, you can see the Figma window. That provides us online space where we can design or modify or communicate together with our local partners. We designed based on many ideas from our local partners, such as design should be simple and easy to understand for all visitors, regardless their knowledge about the technology. So the website only consists of the 5 main pages: the home page where visitors come first, and also showing the important visualization map, and case list, case detail page, where visitor can check the detail of the cases, and also the report page where visitor can report the case to the Mandala, and also the FAQ to answer any question. The homepage visualization Indonesia maps shows that the situation of the human rights abuse cases easily understood by the graduation of the colors. We followed the methodology which Aldo already explained. The Capstone team made an assumption-based one, and also conducted the workshops and the scrutinization workshops with the local partners. At the same time, we also utilize the communication tools based on our local partners' preferences, such as the WhatsApp or Figma. And Figma also allows us to comment on any places on the Figma design. So we use the comments functions and do meeting as well to keep the communication to achieve the co-production. This is one example. On the left-hand side, it's an assumption-based one. We put many ideas from our primary research. And after the scrutinization and conducting the workshop, we incorporate the many ideas to go to the right side to the scrutinization badge. Then we also work with the local partner on the Figma together with them. So that's how we improved our wireframe. After the whole presentation, if we have time, we will present showcasing the all pages.
So to find potential donors of the Mandala website, the pitch deck, which is a brief presentation that gives an overview of the product, was also created. It consists of 7 components, which are the problem, the solution, the product, the beneficiaries, the competition, what makes us different, and the team and contact. For instance, estimated numbers of human rights victims and violations and potential beneficiaries are shown in the beneficiaries page. And there 3 main competitors of the Mandala website are introduced in the competition page. In addition, the what makes us different page explains the significance of the Mandala website. It is important for an appropriate pitch deck to be brief but informative, creative and well-researched, with simple features that the audience can easily follow. So we utilized a guideline as tips and exercise its ingenuity. Once the draft was created based on the wireframe, we applied the methodology previously explained and integrated our local partners' idea and input in the pitch deck by the co-production principle. Next, please. To bring a consistent creative directions of elements within the Mandala website, we also created a branding guideline. It comprises 7 components, which are introduction, logo essentials of contrast and Mandala, swatches, complementing colors, typeface, typography, and art direction, as you can see some of them on the slide. The guideline should reflect the values of a local partner and contrast in written or visual. So we apply the methodology here as well, either by using a video communication tool and message app, same as the wireframe. Notably, during the individual interview, Contrast provided us its graphic standard manual written about its logo variant, which greatly helped in creating the branding guideline.
2 surprising events occurred during the implementation phase. First, in August 2021, Indonesia's coordinating minister for Maritime and Investment Affairs filed a police report against Contrast's coordinator on defamation charges. During this period, 2 out of 3 Contrast's representatives to the Mandala project were absent because they work on the legal case. The second event was in September 2021 when the Netherlands embassy decided not to fund the Mandala project after promising to do so in late 2020. During this period, Contrast and Tempo were demotivated and consequently the Capstone project was momentarily put on hold. At this particular conjunction, the Capstone project team's role was to empathize with the local partners while simultaneously encouraging and reminding Contrast and Tempo about the empowering potential of the website. So after several attempts in mid-September 2021, the local partners ensured their commitment and the Capstone project continued with several adjustments. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Aldo. So at the conclusion phase of the wireframe of the website, web design, so we hired the design professionals to improve the design itself and also the usability and accessibility. And also we test the incorporating the opinion about the important elements which we discussed in the previous scrutinization workshops with the local partners. At some point, we balance the usability and those important elements. Each important element, such as the visualization or the usage of the colors or the graphs related to the gender data or hardly noticeable cases, how we can show the data, we incorporated and also tested with the designer's perspectives as well. And also the beautified each small components by the designers. At the same time, we also reconsider the consistency of the website. One example is the usage of the pictures. Based on our local partners' ideas, that the pictures may not be always available or may not be reliable in some cases. And also it may be sensitive sometimes. So to keep the consistency and avoid the risk of the problems or the distrust, we change it to the graphical icons. So we finalize the wireframe this point to hand over to the local partners. This is one example of how we change at this point, such as the example of the usage of the pictures. Before, on the left-hand side, it has each small pictures, but as ideas from the local partners, maybe the picture might be not reliable. So to go to on the right-hand side, we change it to as graphical icons designed by our graphical designers. So we also improve the many parts, the small parts, but the important parts, each of the elements on the website.
Once the contents of the pitch deck were fixed, graphic designers, the same as the wireframe we hired, finalized it to make the pitch deck look more professional. To give it a strong first impression and visual appeal, a number of photos related to human rights abuses in Indonesia provided by contrast were utilized throughout the pitch deck. During the finalization stage, we closely communicated with the graphic designers and also stayed close to the local partners. By applying the methodology, we confirmed our local partners several times whether the final version of each page precisely reflected their opinions and intentions until its handover. In the conclusion phase of the branding guideline, we conducted a designing scrutinization meeting with local partners as well as the graphic designers. In the meeting, it was decided to create a set of graphic icons for thumbnailing purposes of the Mandala website. The icon set consists of 17 types of cases related to human rights abuses and its offenders, and they are unique and beautiful. The local partner indicated satisfaction with it by saying that the icon may be used beyond the Mandala website because it is usable as they had not had anything like that before. The icon set shown in the art direction page strengthened the wireframe in visual and efficiency.
And this is the last slide, everyone. The lessons that we've learned from our Capstone project and the recommendations for future project implementers. Since we don't have time to present it, I will just show you and let you see what we have on the screen. And thank you very much for listening to our presentation in the past 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you, my colleagues, also Yoshi and Yuji. You guys did great. And thank you
so
everyone.
much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. And we will now continue directly with the second presentation, Community-Driven Conflict Analysis for Effective Prevention of Violent Extremism among Sri Lankan Youth.
Kasumi, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So good day, everyone, dear professors, panelists, and colleagues. Our project is titled as Community-Driven Conflict Analysis for Effective Prevention of Violent Extremism, PVE, among Sri Lankan youth. We collaborated with two NGOs in Sri Lanka to explore the necessity of community-driven conflict analysis for effective and sustainable prevention of violent extremism initiatives. Next slide, please. The outline of the presentation: introduction to the project, rationale and argument, conceptual basis of the project implementation, positive changes we made, and the knowledge contribution to the field. Next slide, please. So why prevention of violent extremism in Sri Lanka? The country has experienced violent extremism in several forms since the independence. The first violent youth uprising happened in 1971. Youth from majority Sinhala Buddhist community from rural areas took up arms against the state. It was brutally suppressed. Then they took up arms again in 1988. They were all killed by the state. By late 70s, Tamil youth in the north and the eastern part of the country started separatist war and sustained it for 3 decades until they were killed. They were wiped out by the military in 2009. From late 90s, country is witnessing rising Islamophobia and jihadist sentiments. This latent conflict surfaced once the war ended. There have been violent outbreaks between Muslims and non-Muslims in every 2 years since 2010. This has peaked with 2019 Easter Sunday attack on several Catholic shrines. The most alarming factor is the heavy involvement of youth in spreading hate speeches and propagating violence. Next slide, please. In this context, PVE is prioritized as the main thematic focus for Sri Lanka by international donor community, local peace-building organizations, and their community-level counterparts. But many organizations hesitate to start interventions because the usual pattern of lack of community ownership once the organization exits from the communities. The two partner organizations have already initiated pilot projects on PVE and started exploring possible ways to maximize community participation. These two organizations fundamentally believe in community participation and often have long engagement with communities, yet they find it difficult to assure enough community participation to sustain the work. This has been a norm of peace-building work in Sri Lankan NGOs. When the organization exits from the community, they find it very difficult to sustain the work. But why this is happening? Mostly pre-intervention context analysis is done by technical experts that is of a handful in Sri Lanka. Different issues, different communities, different organizations, and different donors, but the same circle of technical experts getting hired to run the context analysis always. Role of community members is just being the informants of those experts' data gathering methods. Then organizations design the project and send to donors, and when the fund is approved, they go to community. Then they start developing community ownership, which is not working well, unsurprisingly. Next slide, please. This is even more problematic as the current Muslim versus non-Muslim conflict is much more complex and nuanced than the Tamil versus Sinhalese issue that peace builders have been long familiar with in Sri Lanka. The ideological, geographical, demographical, and socio-cultural complexities of this new phenomenon require narrow, location-specific, and comprehensive assessment driven by the community. On one hand, the vulnerable community is the central part of any conflict prevention work. On the other hand, conflict prevention is not one-time activity, but a continuous collective behavior should be embedded in the communal life. So any conflict prevention work should include the vulnerable community from the very first conflict analysis stage itself if they want to see sustainability. Next slide, please. So we argue that enabling communities to conduct their own conflict assessment is necessary for effective and sustainable PVE initiatives. The first phase of the project that we are discussing about today was to improve partners' understanding of this argument and conviction of. Then the anticipated second phase is to test this argument at the community level. Now, Madhuka will talk about the Conceptual Foundation we base our project.
Okay, thank you, Shivanta. So as noted in the background, violent extremism is also a contemporary but rapidly emerging social issue encountered in the post-conflict phase of Sri Lanka. So in analyzing this social issue, this work integrates three approaches and a framework here. So firstly, community-driven approach. Secondly, co-knowledge generation, including co-production, co-creation, and co-ownership. Thirdly, systems thinking approach and systemic conflict transformation. And finally, this work also recognizes the CRC Pavio conflict analysis framework to analyze the conflict context in a broader sense. So against this backdrop, this conceptual basis connects the issue of violent extremism with a community-driven approach to perceive progressive PVE interventions. The significance of the community-driven approach is that it allows community to contribute to the planning and designing processes. So then this conceptual framework also uses co-knowledge generation and co-production, co-creation, and co-ownership to highlight the importance of integrating community inputs from the very initial phases in addressing social calamities of this nature. So community contributions are very essential and pivotal in this level of an attempt because community power in decision-making during processes and their ownership to the final results indeed make this process and effective. Thirdly, this framework applies systems thinking and systemic conflict transformation to perceive the issue from systemic lenses, as social conflicts are very complex and interconnected with vibrant factors and dimensions. Lastly, this conceptual framework employs the Pabio framework to highlight the validity of holistic conflict understanding. So by relying on this conceptual basis, this attempt intends to perceive effective and sustainable PVE interventions while promoting holistic analysis of the conflict context. Thus, overall, we believe that the rationale behind people's helping to formulate certain requirements in which they will benefit goes beyond a simple reference to democratic ideology, and their true participation and true contribution indeed affects for sustainable as well as effective PVE interventions and resolutions. So in the next part, Amy will discuss the project implementation and its outcomes. Amy, over to you.
Thank you. So the project has two phases. The first phase is aiming to improve the partners' understanding of importance of community-driven approach in PVE. The second phase aiming to enable partner organizations community-driven comprehensive conflict analysis in their identified hotspots in the future. To achieve this, we conducted two-day workshop. The first two-day workshop intends to engage the partners in the conceptual discourse on systematic conflict transformation, community-driven holistic conflict analysis, and knowledge sharing in community engagement. The second two-day workshop was conducted to promote partners' understanding of the CRC-PABIO comprehensive conflict analysis framework. Next, please. So our two partner organizations are national levels of peacebuilding NGOs in Sri Lanka, Center for Communication Training, and National Peace Council. Next, please. So the first two-day workshop was conducted to familiarize partners with the notions of holistic context and conflict analysis for systematic interventions. For the first session, we invited Dr. Joe William from CCT. This session was aiming to encourage participants to treat conflicts they are dealing with as systems of many interlinked factors so that they can develop systemic interventions to address the conflict. And the second was going beyond traditional participatory approach in community resilience building, co-production, co-creation, and co-ownership. The lecture was provided by Professor Mary Leseris from Ateneo de Maria University, and this session was aiming to encourage participants to expand their understanding of community engagement beyond the traditional participatory approaches. The third session was titled Rising Violent Extremism in Sri Lanka and the Possible Causes from Post-Independent Sri Lankan Politics. We invited Dr. Jehan Palela from NPC, and this session was aiming to encourage participants to look beyond the obvious visible problem, understanding the much complex root causes of the conflict. And next, please. So this is how our workshop was going. They created problem trees, and this is how the workshops are going. And next, please. So the second two-day workshop, we facilitated the partners to understand the CRC-PABIO comprehensive conflict analysis framework. We invited pioneer of the CRC-PABIO conflict analysis framework, Professor Amel Abdallah from UPeace. And Professor Amel also provided inputs to understand the beginning of the contemporary international phenomenon of jihadist and Islamophobia based on his own experiences. So during the workshop, participants analyzed their case studies based on CRC Public framework. And finally, participants planned the future project community-driven PVE workshop for their sustainable project. So next, Shivanta will present the positive changes.
This is the process we measure the changes both in the workshops. There was a baseline assessment where participants gave narrative answers as well as marked their level of confidence in necessary areas on a scale to get an idea of the status of partners' level of confidence about conceptual clarity on social conflict analysis, importance of community engagement, and prevention of violent extremism, etc. Then each workshop had pre and post workshop evaluations to measure changes in partners' confidence on specific topics discussed in the workshops. At last, we administered the inline assessment with the same questions as baseline survey. Next slide, please. Here you can see a comparison of the baseline and inline assessment summary. Baseline assessment shows that participants have substantial clarity in general on social conflict and conflict analysis because these two organizations have been in peace building sector for decades. They are good at using conflict analysis tools, but very limited in using conflict analysis framework. Also, their confidence was low in sharing knowledge with communities, and their understanding of community-driven approach is also limited. Look at the chart on the top. But if you look at the chart below, you can see those aspects have improved well. The understanding of conflict analysis frameworks, importance of conflict analysis, and confidence in sharing knowledge with communities have been improved.
3 minutes.
Next slide, please. Here is a comparison between some aspects in the pre and post workshop evaluations. The red side shows the pre-workshop evaluation, and the green side shows how the same aspects have improved in the post workshops evaluation. You can see there is a visible improvement in partners' confidence in systematic conflict analysis in the post-workshop evaluation. Similarly, their confidence of co-production, co-creation, co-ownership, and the importance of community engagement have also improved. Next, Kasumi will discuss the knowledge contribution of this work.
Thank you. So at this point, I would like to reflect on how this project contributed to the existing knowledge and how it's expected to further grow. So here I borrowed this ladder of participation, which shows the spectrum of the degree of participation. As you can see, upper parts represent higher level of participation, and the lowest rank are not even participation, but mere decoration or tokenism. This is, we see a good reminder, especially in engaging young people, since they are often seen as the object of protection or not having enough decision-making power, or either victims or perpetrators in case of violent extremism. So as shared earlier, our partner have already been working substantially closely with communities, including youth groups in different regions, in different projects in Sri Lanka. So we would say their project within the middle to upper level of this ladder already. However, as mentioned earlier, they expressed the issue of ownership in the community, and that's where this project attempted to contribute to bringing the level of participation even higher to the point where the initiation of action or the initial assessment comes from the community youth, and then the decision-making power is ideally shifted. As presented by Shivanta, we are hopeful about this path forward by looking at the increase in the partner's confidence level on the relevant knowledge and skills, for example. And this view is also supported by the fact that both Sri Lankan government and international donors are recently giving more priority in PVE work. With that, let us move on to our conclusion. So the threat of rising violent extremism is unfortunately continuously fueling people's fear and mistrust, and it's more relevant with the time of COVID pandemic. And we humbly perceive the limitation of our intervention in such a complex and intertwined nature of this issue. And with a great appreciation for the partner organizations, existing work and established relationship communities, we consider that the biggest value of our project at this moment is the very process of discussing and envisioning the potential of community-driven assessment with a holistic perspective. And we believe that eventually this will lead to community-owned more sustainable and effective intervention. And last but not least, our project indeed came through with great support, not only from the partner organization, but also from different resource persons showed in this slide. So we would like to express our deep gratitude to all the people who generated part in this project. And with that, we'd like to end our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Let me now call on our third group of presenters.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm now sharing my screen.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Miki from Japan. Today, Mark, Atar, and I'd like to introduce our project entitled Bubaba ni Kalinga para Ate Kapia, which means Kalinga Women for Peace, a documentation of the roles of women in Budon. The project disclosed the comprehensive roles of women in Budon with the perceptions of women peace stockholders and other cultural bearers such as women peace stockholders, elders, other women, and Kalinga youth. In this presentation, I'll show you the background to research methodology, and Atar will show you findings, and Mark will show you the analysis, the conclusion, and recommendation part. So let me show you background and significance of the study. The Budon is a territorially based bilateral pact among Kalinga tribes who live in the Cordillera Administrative Region located in the northern part of the Luzon Island in the Philippines. Budon's objective is to maintain peace and stability within their territories and create bonds of amity. Because of its unique functionality and normativity, Budon has been the subject of studies, but the main focus in the previous study was the structure of Budon and its effectiveness as an alternative dispute resolution. We understand that, like many other functions in societies, Budon has been dominated by men for centuries, and most of the previous studies were focused on their roles. Moreover, less interest is shown to Budon in general, because younger Kalinga generations are becoming less and less aware of its processes due to their exposure to mainstream justice system. These are the gaps we aim to fill through this project. So our research question is, what are the roles of women in Budon? And it will also address the following sub-questions. What are the perceptions of the Kalinga society, particularly the main elders, the youth, and the women themselves of the roles of women in Budon? Are women given enough platforms as men for them to exercise their rights as much as men do? What are the efforts to preserve the cultural practice of Budon? What recommendation can be made based on the results of the documentation? So we hope that this capstone project could serve as a platform like below. First, benefit the people of Kalinga and posterity by documenting an aspect of the Budon process, which is highly regarded as an integral part of the Kalinga society. Second, increase the level of awareness of the public, especially the younger generations of Kalinga on Budon and the roles of that women perform in this indigenous dispute settlement and peace building mechanism. Third, contribute in preserving the practice of Budon, which is considered as an intangible cultural heritage of the people of Kalinga. So in our capstone project, based on online, offline hybrid interviews and a full online focus group discussion implemented between July and October 2021 in the Kalinga province, we have crafted a website entitled Kalinga Women for Peace. This is the outcome of our project. Throughout the project cycle, the principles of co-creation, co-production, and co-benefit were reflected in the local partners' participation. The local partners were lady lawyers who were all members of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines Kalinga chapter and come from different Kalinga tribes. One local partner has the Provincial Office of the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples, NCIP. One is a city councillor and one is a private law practitioner. All are engaged in promoting indigenous and women's rights, as well as culture preservation in various capacities. At the outset of the project cycle, face-to-face and online meetings were conducted with the local partners for collecting data. During the implementation, the local partners also participated in the collecting data. During the implementation, the local partners also participated in the collecting data, which were most often through interviews. Their wide social network enabled us to reach and interface with peace park holders, elders, and other stakeholders, including Kalinga youth. Their ability to speak the local dialects facilitated the interviews. Moreover, through their initiative, other IBP Kalinga lawyers were also tapped to arrange and schedule interviews, among others. The local partners also took part in producing the contents of the website, either through drafting and revising of write-ups or validating their contents. The local partners are planning to establish a women's organization named Kalinga Women for Peace. For this reason, the website is named as such. The name of the website emboldened the sense of ownership of the local partners over the Capstone project. The website is going to be maintained by the local partners that will ensure the sustainability of the project. In addition, insights and opinions of the other culture bearers, which include the Kalinga elders, peace park holders, Kalinga youth, and local and national government representatives were throughoutly considered in each phase of the project cycle. More importantly, anonymous consent of the various sub-tribes of Kalinga as regards the design, objectives, and deliverables of the Capstone project were obtained through their respective elders during the consultation facilitated by NCIP Kalinga. So now I believe you have started to get curious about the documentation. Next, Atar will introduce our findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Miki. So this is Atar from Indonesia. Based on our findings, it can be found several roles that women play in the Bodong process and peace buildings nowadays. First, as responsible for the preparation of food during Bodong celebrations. In any Kalinga occasion, food plays a vital role in making the moment as worthwhile and meaningful as possible. During the celebration, food is prepared mostly by women who have to make sure that only the best is served to the visiting tribe. To many, this role that women performs highlights how food plays a vital factor in creating a stronger bond between tribes or clans, especially during Bodong. Second, as entertainers of the visiting tribes, the celebration of a successful Bodong is characterized by festivities where members of the host tribe entertain the visiting tribe. Usually, this aspect of the celebration is carried out by women and children of the tribe, such as performing dances. Third, as assistant to husband who is the peace park holder. Wives of peace park holders also play major roles in Bodong. Most often, they are the ones in charge of managing the preparation of the food or entertaining the tribes during the Bodong celebration. They assist their husbands so that the Bodong process will go as smoothly as possible. Next, as participants in negotiations and tribal meetings, it's a common observation among elders that Kalinga women have been participating largely from background positions in tribal meetings and negotiation within the tribes, addressing various issues affecting the tribe, including critical one. As an example, when a Bodong is contemplated to be forged or re-established with another tribe, before the elders make decisions, they would usually solicit the opinions of the whole tribe. At this stage, women are given the chance to speak their minds whether forging or re-establishing the Bodong is ripe at this time. Another instance is when they give their opinions whether the penalties imposed are commensurate with the transgression of the Pakta. Last, as peace park holders, we also documented that some women can be PISPA holders. This role endures a huge responsibility because she has to maintain the peace and enforce the pacta or provision of terms and conditionalities. There are three case study here we documented. First is Elena Baklinit, second Karina Alngak Chulsi, and the third Irene Adamo. Elena and Irene are the current PISPA holder, and Karina, a former PISPA holder dating back to the early 1980s. The three of them become PISPA holders by virtue of the three different methods. Karina volunteered when none of the eligible males from her tribe wanted to hold the PISPA. Elena was elected by her tribe's elders, while Irene inherited the PISPA from her husband. Based on our interviews with the women PISPA holders, it's noticed that women can propose herself to be a PISPA holder in certain circumstances if no male in the tribe wants to be the PISPA holder. Women can also learn how to be a PISPA holder with the help of all the community and the elders. Women can also be a leader in settlement disputes by always consulting with the elders about everything before deciding a case. Next slide is about youth and male perceptions about the role of women in Bodong or in Bodong in general. So all young Kalinga women believe that women can be a PISPA holders nowadays, but none of them we knew the existence of a woman PISPA holder. Those are all the young Kalinga women that we interviewed. However, they believe that Bodong still have relevance and effectiveness in Kalinga communities. As one of the young female Kalinga who is an undergraduate at the Faculty of Law said that I am a supporter of Bodong even though I am studying law. For my perception at the moment, I still believe the Bodong process and its effectiveness. We also interview a male PISPA holder. So according to him, Bodong has always been for men, while women, on the other hand, carry the responsibility in food, pots, and merrymaking. However, the male elder expressed that he does not oppose women becoming PISPA holder. He believes that there are no women takers in his tribe. In addition, he would like to see a woman PISPA holder in the future.
You have 3 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. That's my part. Giving the floor to Mark.
Thank you very much, Razak. Based on the findings that we have unraveled throughout the implementation of our Capstone project, we can say the following things as regards gender roles in Kalinga society. Number one, Kalinga people have maintained their gender division of labor based on the traditional lifestyle that they have inherited from their ancestors. However, women nowadays in Kalinga are taking on more and more activities that formerly only men used to do. The stories of the three women PISPA holders show deep respect for Kalinga traditions and the elders who represent them, even if they deviated from traditional gender roles. Now, as regards the youth's perception, we can say these things. Number one, the young Kalingas agree that Bodong is still a relevant and respected institution until today. The oral tradition, which is still strong in the Kalinga community, facilitates the transmission of cultural practices from generation to generation. And one of the factors that contribute to this is the fact that the pagtas are now written, and it facilitates more the transmission of the rules of pagta from one generation to the other. The other is the existence of indigenous knowledge systems and practices curriculum taught in high schools and colleges, which has huge impact on the preservation of Kalinga culture in emphasizing their worth. Now, we have also monitored and evaluated the progress of our project. And in order to do this, we have embedded in the website a survey which the viewers can answer. So based on the result of the evaluation, the number of people who believe that the project raised awareness of women's role was more than the set target. We've set the target to 70%, but we've exceeded beyond 70%. Now, in order to measure how much our goals are accomplished, 3 indicators were set. Number 1, the number of female youths who get interested in being involved in Bodong. Number 2, the number of people who want female contribution in Bodong. The number of people who want to increase women's involvement in Bodong. And in all 3 indicators, favorable results were obtained. Now, vis-a-vis our research questions and the sub-questions, we have come to these conclusions. Number 1, Kalinga women have indeed broken through a tradition that has been dominated by men for centuries. Women now play important roles in the practice of Bodong, including as negotiators and peace stakeholders. And as a dispute settlement and peace-building mechanism, the Bodong has evolved and developed into a more progressive institution. It is clear that despite the belief of some circles that indigenous peoples are losing part of their cultural heritage with their exposure to the outside world, in the Kalinga society, in the Kalinga case, the community as a whole continues to uphold the Bodong process. Kalinga youth continue to respect the value of Bodong process even as they also are making their way in the outside world. And this, the recommendations based on our findings and analysis, the documentation process should be continued by the local partners because there are other women peace stakeholders whose stories are worth sharing and worth learning from. And the use of other platforms in order to widen the reach of dissemination is also encouraged. As regards the more substantive aspect of Bodong, here are our recommendations. There is a need to reconcile conflicting points between PAGTA and national laws so that whatever results achieved through Bodong will not be rendered nugatory by virtue of the fact that they go against national laws, and address also the social needs of the victims and the perpetrators. So just a glimpse of our website. This is the header, and these are the contents, and the main focus are the 3 women peace holders and their stories. And you can see here latest articles also as regards Bodong, what the Bodong is and its processes. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you to all presenters this morning. And I will now open the floor for the panelists' comments. Each panelist has 15 minutes of time.
Who shall go first?
You want to go first? Sure.
Really? Would you want to go first? You're muted.
Yeah, are we going to tackle the first presentation first, right? In consecutive order, the first presentation, the second, and the third, right?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
Yeah. So let's go first to the first presenters, Sri Lanka Group, Community-Driven Conflict Analysis for Effective Prevention. Thank you for your presentation. I see all the hard work that you put in. My comment about this presentation is that let's go first to the gap in the presentation. You did not elaborate in your paper or even in your presentation how the local people or even your partners actually conceptualized or perceive what is the conceptualization, how did they conceptualize the concepts that you were dealing with, like what was their perception or conceptualization of community-driven approach, co-knowledge production, systems thinking, and even violent extremism. You mentioned briefly, very briefly in your paper, but I was sort of interested to know what do they think about the community-driven approach, right? How do they do their conflict assessments? What tools and frameworks do they actually use, and what tools and frameworks do they find helpful? So I was looking for a discussion about about this from the perspective of your partners, right? So because it's the way I read it, it's all from your perspective, the perspective of your research or your project. But I was looking for the perspective of your partners with regards to the important concepts that you are discussing. And I was hoping that based on the perspectives or the concepts of your partners, then you can sort of fill the gap with your own knowledge, right? Through your knowledge sharing. So I guess that's the main thing that I'm trying to figure out. Maybe you can, if you can understand my point.
Yeah, we are supposed to respond now.
Yeah, go ahead, Chef.
Yeah,
Was I
but
clear?
that's how we did it actually. We discussed this, the two partner organizations, since they're capacity building organizations, they have a relatively higher understanding of this academic these topics in academic perspective, and they have been using different frameworks, mostly the analysis tools. When it comes to conflict and context assessment, they have been using analysis tools, but they have not really tried to use a holistic framework. Like they have tried using some holistic framework, but they have identified challenges. So that's their understanding about the holistic framework. And the systemic conflict transformation, the very resource person we invited from one organization, Dr. Joe William. He has done his PhD thesis on systemic conflict transformation in Bedford. So these two organizations work very closely, and they have been in this discourse. And none of these subjects were like, we didn't choose any of these topics alone, but this is how actually we did it. But maybe in our writing of the paper and presenting, that part has been missing.
Yeah, something like that. I was looking for the perspective of your partners, right? So what is clear to me is that I understand the importance, right? We all understand the importance of the community-driven approach, the co-knowledge production, the systems thinking, and conflict transformation, right? We are all in that, right? So you are preaching to the choir, as they say. But I was just curious about, what do your partners think of all of this? You know, like in my own fieldwork, for instance, in Mindanao, there's some locals use a form of conflict assessment also, or an assessment. They use a mashwara, for instance. It's a community consultation. So things like that. This is how, for example, in the particular community that I'm focused in Marawi, for instance, they use a mashwara, no? So, which is a community consultation. So these are the things I'm sort of looking for in the context of Sri Lanka and certain communities. How do they do their conflict assessment, no? And what are the gaps in their own conflict assessments, you know? So I was sort of interested in what were the locals actually doing, right? And maybe it can also inform your interventions later on, project interventions. So that was the my thinking on that. But yeah, it's maybe in your paper you can add more. What are those challenges that faced by, because it was sort of written in passing, eh? You did not elaborate on the challenges of your partners in a sense. Your paper is actually heavy on, what's this, the evaluation part, right? So you were I had some comments there about, it's like you were asking them about their confidence level on how they do their community assessments. Something like that, right? All right. So
Yes.
you're asking, for example, if you're the one asking me, you're asking me if how confident am I on the necessity of doing community level assessment and community driven projects. So like you're asking me about it. So I think it's your maybe a big portion of your paper was about that, right? But if I were to, I guess if I were to do it, I would be more interested in how they do these things, the community assessments, how they conceptualize of co-knowledge production, for instance, and all these things, right? Maybe you should.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. And adding to Sivanta's comment, also we had, for example, after the Professor Mary's presentation, the partners said we never think such holistic, deeply engaged with the community. So I think this we got some feedback from participants, I think, and then they say after the workshop, they say we also wants to continue to contact with the professors, which gave the lectures. So I think we also had to say that was their opportunity to further to say communication with Professor Mary and other lecturers. I think this is also our how to say output. And yes, we I think we didn't really wrote about the partner organizations reaction, but we can add later on. But we did saw some improvement and their had to say happiness of their had to say findings of importance of community driven approach. And yeah, thank you.
Well, yeah, I agree with you that you know the contribution of this your project really is you somehow added, you gave them more knowledge about these new frameworks, these new concepts, right? Because usually when you are working for an NGO or a CSO for the longest time, you become tired, you become jaded, you don't even have time to write and reflect, right? You don't have to be, you don't have time to be abreast with the new developments on development and doing community work. You know, you have no time to be abreast with new knowledge in a sense. So your project, the contribution of your project really is you gave them some added knowledge. How to look at community assessment in a more comprehensive manner, right? For me, my learning from this project is really the CR-CPABIO framework. It's I looked at it, it was so comprehensive. It's like if you're gonna study peace building and conflict resolution work, peace building and conflict resolution theories and concepts, nearly all of these are inside that CR-CPABIO, that framework, right? So it's sort of, maybe this was his thesis or dissertation, that he eventually synthesized everything, all these concepts and frameworks on peace building and conflict resolution. So it's really helpful as a guide, right? It's really helpful as a guide. It gets people to think about how they should do things, community assessments. So yeah, I think that's the big contribution of your intervention there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, it's my turn. I'll come in. Congratulations to the team. I can see not only the effort but the thinking being poured into the project, and I can see also the passion that you have well shown in just bringing what I can see as four complex frameworks or approaches in doing peace work or peace and conflict interventions. Primarily, that's the framework of the community-driven approach, the co-benefits, co-creation, and co-production principles, systems thinking, and the CPABIO. Uh, in a sense, this is a quartet of approaches rolled into one. Um, I I was actually thinking that this is rather ambitious in the sense that you have tied up together for huge approaches, which is actually good, and it seems that it does work. And then I can see where and how it's working. It's just that probably, and I share with what Mr. Torres was saying about how it was written up. I think the explanation by Shivanta is clearer. It gives and Emmy, it gives some insights and some. It brings us right to the ground. I can see where the partners are coming from and how they have given inputs into your work, but they're not very clear in the writing in the paper. Perhaps there has to be improvement. There has to be better ways for you to really present, to make the voices of the partners heard, as what Mr. Torres was saying. But probably my question for you, and I wish you to answer this, is that you did mention, although in passing, that sometimes this intervention work in preventing extremist violence and in promoting a peace engagement would also require a developmental approach. So I'm wondering now, what what they mean by that developmental approach, what sort of development engagement would be required, and whether or not it's required. What's your position on this? Does peace engagement require a development component, or would this quartet of engagement would already suffice, approaches will already suffice in doing the work that you're doing, or the work that you're envisioning, which is preventing extremist violence? Anyone from the team?
Maybe I say something about that. I think it's really related to the nature of violent extremism that really emerged from for example, insufficiently fulfilled basic human needs, and also anyone can be like extremism if the condition is met. So it's really like related to different dimension of the life of the people, like social, economic, and cultural. These things are really entangled in this issue. So I think in that sense, developmental approach is really needed, and that's why we and also the partner organizations see the necessity for the community and the people to see the necessity of the project or intervention. I remember that in the very initial discussion with the partners, that they shared with us that the community members sometimes don't see the program, and it's difficult for the partners to let the community take ownership and also see the issues. So I think that's where the peace building work and development approach, Marty.
I also like to add to Kasumi's point. Actually, this was discussed and highlighted while
we were having an activity to develop the problem tree. So when they're identifying the issue, they identified several factors and several contributors. So in that regard, they said that, yeah, as Kasim said, there's a hidden side, unseen side of this. So this would affect clearly not only for like the peace and the cohesion, but of course affects the social, cultural, like other development sectors as well. So they were much concerned about that. They thought like, yes, this would ultimately escalate into such a level which would hinder not only the peace and cohesion, but also the development process. So that is one of the things we identified through workshops.
And I also want to add something, particularly now when it comes to the peace in Sri Lanka related to the war we had between the Tamils and Sinhalese, the ethno-political crisis, the development, economic development, infrastructure development after 2009 has really helped to bring some sort of peace, even though it's not a very positive peace. Even that was the slogan of the former government who won the war. They were telling that we can't waste time digging into the past. We will never end. Let's focus on the economic development that will ultimately bring peace. That seemed to work. But when it comes to this Muslim, non-Muslim issue, if you look at the 4 people who carried out the attack on Easter Sunday, they were from multi-millionaire business family. They are well educated in Europe and Australia. So this new issue has a totally different dimensions to the economic aspect. It's not really the poverty or unemployment or lack of infrastructure of economic development really pulling youngsters to this jihadist sentiment, as well as the other extremist ideology that countering the Islamist extreme ideology. So it's for partner organization and everybody who is looking at this problem at Sri Lanka at the right moment cannot really find out where the development contribution can be placed, tackling prevention of violent extremism in relation to Muslims, non-Muslims issue.
Well, thank you to the team. I think that highlights the importance of that issue to be elaborated, at least as it is presented, as it was presented by your partners, to be elaborated in the paper as part of the insights that you can draw from this work. But probably final point on this matter is on the technical side. In your paper, it might be good for you to really tie up the 4 concepts all together. I can see them. They're presented one after the other, but they're not tied together in the end. That's also probably where Mr. Torres and I has been grappling in getting really the insights and the lessons from what you have done as a holistic framework. Shivanta has been talking about that holism. It would be good, it would be well to really illustrate how that holism would be captured by bringing together all of this framework and then tying it up with the voices of your partners. I think I'll end there because I'm looking at the time. There are 2 more panels to comment on. Really, should I go first to the second group? And that's the Mandala, right? The Mandala project. Let me just pull out my comment. I think this is an interesting, well, the approach that the team has done, the framework that they had pulled together, the blending of the COCD, which are 2 approaches already, with the principles of co-production, co-benefits, co-ownership, has proven to be an effective and resilient model for partnership engagement. Particularly in your case, as you have mentioned in your presentation, as I also read in the paper, that at one point in time, a major funder had withdrawn from the project due to various issues, communication issues, so on and so forth. And at one point in time, you were seen to be thrown out or you don't know what to do. Well, don't know what to proceed. That seems to me the case as I could read from the paper and as I could have gleaned from your presentation. Um, and this shows that that framework, that model may be an effective one, because it seems that you have pursued the project and had implemented it despite that major drawback with funding being pulled back. But I'm just wondering, well, 2 points. It would be good for you to provide an explanation and then also a few examples on the limitations of COCD that led you to pair it up with co-creation, co-production approaches. Why do you need that these two would have to be blended? So it would make sense. How did it work? How what was its what is the ingredient of its success when the funder pulled out, and then you were still able to carry on with the project with your partners, and then the partners sticking with you and you sticking with the partners in pursuing the engagement. It would be very well if you can discuss this in a step-by-step way, so we can have more insights, gain more insights about this experience. Second, probably, which you can discuss even after Willie, is that what's the insight that you can draw from that sudden disengagement of a donor, of a partner in the middle of the project engagement? What are not only your thoughts, but and not only the lessons learned from it, but what can you draw from that experience that could probably enhance and then also expand our way of engaging with the project using your model currently, and also other means by which to handle a sudden shift, such as a funding pullback. What are the major insights that you can gather or that you have gathered from it? I'll end there.
Thank you so much for the question. May I comment first? Thank you. So I think that I may answer the first question first, right? That yes, when we heard the news that our potential donor withdraw the potential fund, then actually we kind of shocked the most. We realized that later, but we thought we shocked same level like with our local partners. But actually they have more, how can I say, they had very strong motivation even after we heard the news, withdraw the potential fund. I think to answer your question, I think it comes from what we wanted to achieve by the co-creation principle at the first. What I mean is, I think that because of that, when we start to design this project with our local partners, I think the very beginning of the phase, Aldo and our team member also try to mention repeatedly about our positionality. Like we are trying to support you then, but you are the kind of the main decision maker then. We are beginning this project together, and then we are trying to achieve together or something like that. We repeatedly mention about during our workshops. I think that makes them the notion of the co-ownership from the very beginning of the Mandala project. Then I think that during the project, we didn't so much realize about the power of the co-ownership until we have the program. But after we had kind of the issue of the potential funder, then after actually Aldo went to their office or communicate with them in person, then he report to us like they still have the motivation to continue the Mandala project, even we had that withdrawal the potential funder. So it's like for me is then on the time we realized that that co-ownership created by the very beginning of the project gave us like high level of motivation with us, with them, with the local partners. So I think that is the strongest point to, benefits what we realized through this approach, I think, and through this project. I think this is to answer your first questions. Maybe Aldo, if you wish to add something for that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, it's my turn. I have several questions. Prior to the intervention, what was the status of the Mandala website prior to your team's intervention?
So it was still an idea, Professor Willie. So so it wasn't there yet as a fully functioning website. So it's still in the website development phase.
I see. And you mentioned in your paper, you also had that your two partner organizations already had an IT team, a team focusing on IT. They already had this, right? Working on the website. So can you distinguish the work that your team has done and the IT team of the two NGOs? What is the value added of your team to the Mandala project?
Yeah, so the IT team of our local partners consists of 2 members, Professor, one from Contrast and one from Tempo. But both of them are UI UX experts, so not necessarily the back end part of a website. As such, they don't have the expertise to create the business process of a website, which was illustrated in the skeleton document, the wireframe, the branding, especially. So that's where our value proposition was, in supporting them creating the skeleton document, so that in the future, both the front end and the back end developers could use that skeleton document as a reference.
I see.
I think, sorry, may I add
go ahead.
something?
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I think also that the earlier phase of the implementation, designing phase, our partner mentioned that even though they have the experience to design the website, but they also knew that designing the wireframe or the website or the process of those like a reporting system, it takes very long time for them to design it. Then actually, of course, they are working for their each country companies or the NGOs. Then so they actually need kind of the support to facilitate and the gathering the knowledge or the ideas, how we can create more tangible the website design or wireframe. So that's where we can also contribute the support. And also we bring that we did kind of the primary research before creating the wireframe. We searched for the another websites that not only the Indonesia, but the other countries, they have kind of the similar functions like a human rights abuse case, the visualization website, or some kind of the visualization website, not necessarily related to the human rights, but we try to find another visualization website. Then we research about those like existing website and then compare them. We also bring those like 3 to 4 like idea summary of the idea, then we bring to the workshop to discuss with our local partner, which is the suitable for this situation or in our limited resources or their purposes or importances. So that's how we contribute, like bringing external ideas, then also supporting the like kind of the problem of the lack of the workloads or something like.
Can you briefly clarify about you had an issue with the gender sensitivity? Your partners were a little hesitant at first, right? So how were you able to push this eventually? What happened with the gender sensitivity?
Yes, I think that to clarify, they didn't hesitate to, those tackle on those issues. They, of course, that understood the importance of those elements. But I may say that they are trying to tackle on the whole, the umbrella of the human rights abuse cases, not specifically on the gender or not specifically on the one aspect of the elements, the category of the human rights abuse cases. So that's why that maybe we also thought that we can bring those the elements more explicitly onto the website. So at the same time, we yes, like repeatedly mentioned about the importance of those elements to bring into the wireframe design. So that's how we try to contribute. But as we try to be like, how can I say, not one of the decision maker, we try to bring the elements, we try to bring the idea, the knowledge to the table, to the discussion workshops. But we also asking them to thinking about and then try to them to understand the importance of them. But they should be the one who decide the elements, what they wish to bring to the mandala. So that's how we manage it. Then actually there are some elements related to the gender on the website. So I think that is a balance how we bring to the idea to the website and how they decide to incorporate with it.
You know what I appreciate about this project is that your project is sort of service oriented, right? So you help facilitate the projects of 2 NGOs. You sort of nudge them in a direction towards this idea of the Mandala project. And in the process, you have been serving their project. And as you said, it's like you put your partners front and center, right? Is this, it reminds me of an internship, Sometimes NGOs are, too busy. And then interns come, here comes the interns. And the interns are sometimes, will these interns be helpful to the organization or will they be too bothersome for us? As an NGO, right? Sometimes interns bother you instead of becoming helpful. At least in the way I see it, at least you were helpful to them, right? Despite the obstacles and challenges that they face, like that legal case and the withdrawal of funding. So you answer, the way I see it, you answered a need of your partners. You fill the gap in their work. So yeah, I really like. Is this really the thrust of the UPs and Ateneo program? I was wondering for you to be servicing. Maybe this should be emphasized, right? A service-oriented internship, a service-oriented program in the service of the NGOs or your partners or the communities, right? So maybe this should be emphasized more. So congratulations. Yeah. Can I have one quick question?
Of course, really.
Why are you in a hackathon? Is this part of your program?
Well, no, Professor. So during the assumption building phase, which is like late last year, the initial idea of the Capstone project was in fact totally different than what we implemented eventually. Because the initial idea was for us to create a fully functioning website, still a human rights monitoring and reporting website that specifically pays attention to human rights abuses in Papua, Indonesia's easternmost island. So I came up with that assumption, and then I tried to test that assumption by participating in a hackathon.
Okay.
So that's the summary.
Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Joel, do you have more comments?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
You can go to the next group. Congratulations.
Okay. So then, thank you very much, our panelists. Thank you, Willy. Thank you, Joel, for your comments and suggestions.
There's one more group,
There's
Alfred.
one more group. Joel, you want to start, or Willy, you want to continue?
For the bottom, right?
The bottom.
Yeah. So just some observations on the Bodong paper. I think this report is well written, and I was checking the website. It was nice. It was clean. Just a simple question: why the Bodong? Why did the group decide to focus on the Bodong? What made you decide for this research topic? I'm just curious.
Good morning once again, Professor. I can start answering for the group. Maybe Mickey and Ataur can jump in later on. At the outset of brainstorming as regards what Capstone project will we do when we were still in doing the first cycle of the APS scholarship, we were thinking of making a comparative study between a indigenous dispute settlement in the Philippines and Indonesia. However, due to pandemic, we were not able to come up with that, to realize that kind of vision. So we thought of comparing a patriarchal society, which is found in the Philippines, and a matriarchal society, which is found in Indonesia. And that is, we're referring to the Minangkabau. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, yes, because of the pandemic, we're not able to do that. So we concentrated on studying a particular indigenous cultural community, indigenous group in the Philippines. And we, I think that one of the indigenous groups that has one of the most sophisticated justice system is the Kalinga. And I have a prior knowledge as regards the province adjacent Kalinga. I am from Cagayan. So, and most of the circle that I'm working with are familiar to the Bodong province. So considering the conditions of doing field work, considering the pandemic, we thought of just concentrating on Bodong, which more facilitative. But aside from that, I think the Bodong is a good showcase of indigenous justice system in the Philippines compared with the other indigenous cultural groups. And we don't see any other kind of mechanism existing in other indigenous cultural groups. And that's the primary reason why we concentrated on studying Bodong.
Mm-hmm. I'm also curious how, I guess it was not addressed in your paper, how do the peace pact holders get the resources or the financial support to support a peace pact? So it was not really explained there, aside from the peace pact holders should be well off or something, right? So maybe you should also explore that later on. Do you have an answer to that? No?
Yes, Professor. There's no actual systematized financial mechanism that support the Bodong and also the peace pact holder. That is why they rely more on the financial capability of the peace pact holder to carry out the responsibility of the peace pact holder. That's why one of the heavier criteria that they are considering is that the peace pact holder must have the financial capability to support to become a peace pact holder. That's why being a peace pact holder is also a social status in Kalinga society.
I see.
Can I add one more about why peace pact holders need financial ability? because peace pact holders have a responsibility to protect the ambassadors from other tribes. In some cases, two tribes were really in the very difficult situation, like killing each or other or something. So peace pact holder needs to protect the visitors from other tribes. So that's, and of course, in that case, they have to prepare accommodation for them, maybe almost in their houses. So they apparently need a financial ability to do that.
Yeah, thank you. You know, what I learned from this paper is that, you know, I actually didn't know that there were female peace pact holders. You know, it's my first time to find out about it. And I realized through reading that there was a growing interest about it on the Bodong among the youth, right? Is that correct? And through your paper, we're seeing how this practice is evolving. And I must appreciate, you must really have wonderful local partners there who helped you, right, to do the research. So in my view, it's sort of, we're seeing, including the other presentations, we're seeing a sort of proof of concept here of the potential of this digital or new media in creating awareness about these cultural practices, because they can reach out to more people. It's basically, it makes this knowledge more accessible. Usually we just find this in the libraries and, you know, in journals, in papers. But because of this, it's now in this new media, it's more accessible to people. People can easily see it and appreciate it. So I guess, you know, it's really nice. It makes me realize that my own work previously was so boring. You know, you do a research, you do an ethnography, and it's just confined in the Ateneo library. It's just there. So at least you're doing your work, and it's, you know, it's able to reach out, especially the young people. And I think that's fascinating. It's the, you know, how can we, for us older folks, how can we re-educate ourselves to be more also like you younger folks? There's a reaction there. Nawala.
Okay.
Yes.
My turn. Okay, I'll jump in.
Yeah, basically just a few more just minor typos on page 8 and page 20. Just check it out. And maybe just a suggestion for your maybe you should also put in your website about your research methodology and your sources, bibliography, so that when people go there, they will immediately see that it is actually research based, right? And it's not fake news, like fake Oxford. But Joel is the real Oxford, right? That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Willie. Joel?
I'll jump in. Thanks, Willie. Thanks, Alfred. Well, I think this is a very productive contribution to various literature ranging from anthropology, legal studies, development, and literature and NGOs, as well as on gender relations. There's a lot to draw from what you have produced to this work. But what I think of this work is that this is a documentation, yes, of one, gender relations in peace and conflict resolution processes, the indigenous processes of doing peace work, and at the same time women's engagement in that gendered relations. But one other dimensions that dimension that I'm seeing in all of this of this work is that we're we're seeing a documentation of a transforming institution. So this seems to be not just about gender relations, but transformation of an institution from what you have noted early on, a very male lined or male based kind of conflict resolution processes, moving into a more mixed gendered engagement, and then with women having more voices and roles in that engagement. But probably that's where this paper might be able to articulate further more clarity on that transformation, how exactly the institution transformed from being mainly a male dominated or even male exclusive engagement to opening to women in holding the budong, in holding a peace pact, and in engaging with that. Although I'm not familiar with the literature, it might also be good if you can check out if there were literature of women's roles in the past, though even at a limited scale. But I'm just fascinated by how it shifted to what we see now. But any shift would have a process. It would unfold. What might be interesting is to at least illustrate some point in the paper the transformation, how it moved from point A to point B, male dominated, to more women participation in the process. You did mention globalization and migration as possible factors, although in passing you might want to expand on that. But what I'm seeing is that this may not only be a globalization and migration driven transformation, but this is a story of a group of a community, of a group of people that had collectively decided, pursued to embrace modernity, and the kind of modernity that they have engaged to some extent is more liberal in a sense, particularly on gender roles. You might want to further discuss that matter, how they embrace the modern engagement. My my hunch as well is that has this been a product of years after years of indigenous rights advocacy? And indigenous rights advocacy is not just a local affair, but it is also a wide, broader affair that has regional, national, and international dimensions, global dimensions. Not just through the processes of globalization, but the acts of solidarity of indigenous peoples way back in the 70s to the 80s, the various encounters by indigenous peoples around the world. Has that been a contributing factor? Because I don't think this is just a globalization migration process. There are agentive or active engagement coming from the indigenous community in this transformation. Not so sure how if that was drawn from the data set, but it seems like it has been drawn from the data set. I could almost imagine that you might have that in your notes when you're doing this. But one matter that you might be able to answer now is that there was an entry in your paper that there was that one woman who had been one of the pillars of women's engagement in Budong, and had succeeded in doing so, and probably one of the main actors who had transformed Budong from male to more gendered relations, is that the work of Irene Bawaa. Was it Bawaa? And then I think in your narrative, at one point Irene was so successful, but then she got old. She has to sort of, what I could surmise, retire, and had to take a back seat to and then open that seat to the next generation. But the person who followed her is a male, is a man, though her son, but it's man. So I'm just wondering about your insights about that. So you have this a woman who's been like almost like a Joan of Arc in this engagement, and then replaced by, well, not really replaced, succeeded by a man. How what can you say about this dynamics? And yes, yes, while it is a man who had succeeded it, I could surmise that it may not automatically meant that it goes back to what you have mentioned as a patriarchic, more male line oriented relations, because men has also transformed in recent times, more conscious of gender roles. But then just an insights into this. So where are the next generation of women doing budong in this process? While why is it men? Or are there other dynamics that are coming in? Is it a sign of transformation that though men and women assumes the leadership of the budong, it's more along the lines of gender sensitive relations that matter? Probably I just need to hear from you about that.
Yeah. First, traditionally, as we already mentioned on the paper, that the stockholder are the male. Majority of the previously all stockholder are male, but due to circumstances that some women can be stockholder. So as regard what Prof. Joel said, why, I'm not sure, but Mark can confirm later, but we also interview those female stockholders. So we asked what they think about women become stockholder. So majority of the women stockholders still believe that men should be the stockholder. So that's, I think, the main point that we get from our interviews with the stockholder. So majority of the women stockholders still believe that men should be the stockholder. So in certain circumstances, for example, there is no son progeny, so the daughter can inherit the bodong. So that's what I know. Thank you.
I have other things to add, but I think Prof. Mary raised her hand.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I should join in this, but I cannot resist. First of all, let me just say to the team, I'm really so appreciative of how they have moved from the first few times that we started discussing it to now. It's really been, to me, very, not amazing, but something that you could really appreciate the learning process that was taking place, especially on the notion of co-production and so on, because of course it's something entirely new, as really Doris has pointed out, but very refreshing once you get into that, because the motivation, I think, for the researcher who is not solo the outsider writing about them is entirely different as an experience. All right, so that's kind of the general introduction, but on the topic now that you're raising, I wanted to make 2 points, which I have discussed with them previously. One is this, of course, focuses on the budong itself, but interestingly, right now, I am editing a series of community organizers from the 60s, 70s, and early 80s who worked in communities, right? And we know those are urban and so on, Tondo and Cebu. But one of the cases is the Kalinga case from the fight with the World Bank for the Chico River issue. And what the veteran organizers are telling me from those days, in particular, si Yuri Mulaban, who is a Kalinga, who was studying or learning how to do organizing, the style that of conflict confrontation, negotiation in the Tondo Foreshore, from Dennis Murphy and company, that whole group. Monlaban's reflections as a Kalinga himself, he went back earlier than the training scheme in Soto, because the early organizers told him that you need to be in Chico River and find local people, your local counterparts, who can deal with the issues with the Marcos administration, who wanted to, of course, flood their valleys with them. And those organizers who knew the urban area were so impressed with the Kalinga organizing, because they said they didn't really have to introduce anything as they did in other urban sections, because they were already organized. They had systems of how to connect. So the outside organizers played a very small role. Because the local organizers who were Kalinga, who were not peace pack holders, but they integrated into the Bodong system, which was already well organized, to plan this whole process throughout the region. And the role of the outside organizers, who were the original, anyway, I won't mention the names anyway, but they're very early organizers from outside. What they did was connect with the World Bank, pressure with the NGOs to put pressure on the World Bank to stop the loan to the Philippine government. So it was those other definitions of how you keep a peace process, which evolved because of the real situation, with these young community organizers. And skip now another, was that 40 years? Who are their partners? Those three women lawyers, are the ones who are very active. I don't know whether they want to, I don't think they, at least hasn't been mentioned, do they want to be holders of Bodong? Are they aspiring to that? I don't think I've heard that, but these are three women lawyers who are dealing with Kalinga issues now, not so much, I guess, intertribal, within the Kalinga domain and Bontoc and so on, but with the outside world of local government and national government. So the expansion, you might say, there's an expansion of the peace process to now women lawyers. These are, I don't know how many Kalinga lawyers there are, but these three women are their very strong partners. In fact, as they know, last week when we met with them for a final review, we both, Pryor and I, strongly recommended that they give much more emphasis to those partners on the ground. That's another kind of peace process that has evolved from the strengths of that Bodong, system. So, this is really a fascinating thing. So the women part, maybe they don't want to be peace pack holders as such, but the women are, at least these three, and maybe there are more, are developing into peacekeeping, or at least in the rights claiming, from their perspective. And their partners are three women Kalinga lawyers. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Mark, you want to respond?
Just 2 minutes, if you will allow me to. Because I think I have to say this. The women, the female lady lawyers of Kalinga have been very helpful, and we are happy to share that because of this project, they are now forming a group which they will call the Kalinga Women for Peace. And the advocacy now of this organization is to promote the culture of peace among Kalinga women. That's why we have, this has emboldened the sense of ownership of the Kalinga women over the Capstone project. That's why we are happy to endorse to them the Capstone project. As regards the questions of Prof. Joel, where are the women now there are 46 sub-tribes in the entire Kalinga tribe. NCIP groups the Kalinga tribe as just one tribe, but there are 46 different sub-tribes, and they are now pursuing to be elevated to a level of tribes. So eventually, if this will approve, there will be 46 tribes within the Kalinga province. Now, what I'm trying to point at is there are different ways by which these tribes practice Bodong, and there are different ways by which they perceive women, and there are different the level of acceptance as regards the growing of women. And there are more progressive sub-tribes. There are more that are still somehow close to the idea of women becoming peace pact holders. But we see development in this aspect that there are more tribes who are now open to having women as peace pact holders, because peace pact holders is like the height of the pedestal as regards the whole process of Bodong, because the peace pact holder is the leader. The peace pact holder is the implementer, the enforcer of the whole process of Bodong, of course, with the help of the elders. So in the case studies that we've done, especially in the case of Elena Baglinit, she was appointed by the tribe. Even if, let's say that the previous peace pact holder was her father, but because of the tribe's openness to this kind of development, Elena Baglinit, who was a woman, was elected by her tribes because they see the capability in the person of Elena Baglinit. In some other tribes, there are more like the same situation. So these are the things that we want to explore more, and maybe we could have a definite answer to the question of Prof. Joel. There are other women peace pact holders, because we were just handed a list of peace pact holders by the Provincial Tourism Office of Kalinga, and like 3% these are women. So it is important for us to explore the stories of the other women in the other sub-tribe in order to connect whether there is actually a pattern. How is it evolving in the general scheme of things? So that's one of our recommendations, to explore more, to share more the stories of these women peace pact holders. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. We are a bit over time already. If Melis would allow me to entertain one comment from Dr. Salsitar, I like to ask Butch for his comment.
Hello, I just made that comment. I think we have to be careful about using the word patriarchal. I think Kalinga society traditionally is bilateral in descent. Both men and women inherit property. On the other hand, Minangkabau society is matrilineal. It's only the daughters inherit, but it is the sister's brother who administers the property. Actually, from a feminist perspective, both are patriarchal societies. They're dominated by men, just the same, despite these property laws. That's all I have to comment. And another thing too, I'm not comfortable with the word tribal. People keep using tribal all the time. Speaking with Kalinga friends, I noticed they keep using tribe for what they mean. What is really a village, a nayon? They classify a village as a tribe. I don't think it's correct because they're speaking the same language. That's my only comment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Butch. Okay, so I think that's all for our first session. Let me thank again the panelists, Professor Torres and Dr. Kanudai. Thanks to all the presenters and also to their responders, to the comments of Dr. Mary and Dr. Butch. And I think now to begin with the second event, let me now invite back Dr. Melis Navarra. And if I can briefly introduce her, Dr. Melissa Getulio Navarra is a faculty in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology of the Ateneo de Manila University. And she has over 2 decades of government experience in involuntary eviction resettlement, and housing prior to joining the Ateneo faculty. And currently, Melis continues to work closely with the resettled families and the informal settlers. She has likewise published research on areas of social capital, food security, housing, and involuntary resettlement in the Philippine and Indonesia setting. Thanks, Melis, and thank you again for inviting me to today's event. And I hand over to you now.
Thank you, Alfred, and I hope to see you again in the afternoon.
Definitely.
Okay, so for the second cluster, we have the community-based tourism, and yes, the first presentation is about participatory community engagement in community-based tourism, case study from a social enterprise in Vietnam. And the presentation will be delivered by Ayako Mori, Dang Tuy Dong, Shinpei Watanabe, and they were under the guidance of Dr. Fernando Cialcita. Meanwhile, the second presentation is entitled A Study on Community-Based Tourism, Understanding the Nature of CBTs, Identification of their Challenges and Lessons Learned for Future Tourism Development in Danu Self-Administered Zone in Southern Shan State in Myanmar, and will be presented by John Jeffrey Seng, Lapay Kelly Nangong, Kazuki Otaki, Kin Nilarko, and Pan Suong. And their academic supervisor is Dr. Andrea Soko Roda. We have invited two panelists again for this cluster. And for first panelist, we have Dr. Randy Tuanyo. Dr. Randy Tuanyo is an associate professor and chair of the Economics Department, School of Social Sciences of the Ateneo de Manila University. He is also currently serving as a core faculty member of the School of Government Professional Schools, Ateneo de Manila, and is the program manager of Sustainable Development Goals Program of Ateneo Institute of Sustainability. Our second panelist is Attorney Junfe Payot. Attorney Payot is the Executive Vice President of the Social Housing and Finance Corporation, the government agency that's mandated to provide affordable social housing for low-income communities through a community-driven participatory approach. Prior to that, he was senior court attorney at the Office of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and has been involved in social justice, housing, and urban development work for 2 decades, starting with his 9-year stint at the John J. Carroll Institute of Church and Social Issues. So we have invited Dr. Tuanyo and Attorney Junfe in this event to share their expertise with our students and give further guidance to them in terms of enhancing their manuscript and the project collaboration in the area of sustainability and impact. So now we can start our presentation. So we invite the first set of presenters. Good luck.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So let us begin. So our team, Ayako, Shinpei, and Ze, presenting the project, participatory community engagement in a community-based tourism case study from a social enterprise in Vietnam. And it is supervised by Dr. Fernando Cialcita. So let us begin. Next to move slide. So this is our outline. Start with overview and lead to the recommendation. Let's move to the next slide, please. So I'll start with overview. So generally, throughout the Vietnam, tourism become an important part of economic development. But meanwhile, on more and more beautiful landscapes are threatened by the mass tourism. Negative impact has been observed on the vulnerable people, including ethnic minorities, to become more vulnerable and lose their livelihoods. So our partner, Car Friends, KPF, is a social enterprise which has been supporting Eat Thai Village in Vietnam, a community of the Thai ethnic, to conserve their environment and culture while improving their income and living standard for the 3 years with many activities. So the main lead homestay and some other community-based tourism, CBT, related activities such as tour guide. However, they are having an issue with promoting sustainable development and engaging with the community. So from the situation, we sought to a way to contribute with our academic knowledge. Let's move to the next slide. Okay. So the first step was developing a program tree with a KPF. The core problem the KPF defined as a lack of confidence in the community. It's inevitably creates a situation that KPF dominate the decision-making in their activities. Then it led to some activities failing from the lack of active participation of the community. So moreover, the core problem also pose a risk that the community might lose a vulnerable tradition practice from the lacking their interest of their culture. It also then higher the risk that they would sell their land to the developers. So from the core problems, the project team identify and decide to work on two root causes, considering the time constraints and team capacity. So which were the lack of understanding of CBT among stakeholders, including the KPF core members and potential tourists, and the community's capacity to participate. So from the two root causes, the lack of understanding about CBT and community's capacity to participate, the team set the final goal of this project as contributing to enhancing the stakeholders' roles and communities' voices to promote the confidence of the entire community. So this project applied the approaches of participatory and need-driven and two-pronged with a consistent awareness of the power imbalance between the KPF and the community. And it must be noted that just about the time of this project implementations, the Vietnamese government imposed a strict lockdown because of the sudden increase of COVID-19 cases. It impacted the project due to the stress of the KPF core members to participate and difficulty for direct engagement with the community, since none of the core project members were able to be at the community. So from those background, the activities outcomes are designed as provide fundamental knowledge on the CBT and participatory development to the stakeholders, including KPF core members and reaching to the potential tourists and tour operators. And the second, provide safe space and encourage the community to raise their voices and speak up at the concern regarding the CBT development in their community. And then we plan the two public webinars for the raising the awareness of CBT and the one workshop for the community participatory development. So next, Shinpei will start with project implementations.
Yes, thank you for Aiko-san. And I will talk about project implementation and result. And as Aiko-san explained, so we held 2 webinars and 1 workshop. So first webinar was held on October 3rd. And since the pre-questionnaire revealed that the participant had only a vague understanding of CBT, so we chose the topic of what CBT is and the basic principle of CBT. So we have invited 2 CBT experts from the Philippines and Vietnam as guest speakers. In the webinar, the speakers highlighted the local characteristic of CBT, based on local resources managed by local people and create local benefit, as well as the role of different stakeholders in different stages of CBT development. In addition, in the discussion part, they focused on the capacity building of local community to manage the CBT model by themselves and the importance of equal benefit sharing. According to the post-questionnaire, 100% of the participants were satisfied with the webinar, and almost all of them answered that they deepened their understanding and interested in CBT. The second webinar was held on October 17th. For the needs of audience to know the impact of CBT and for the purpose of promoting the voice from the community, so we invited 2 community members from 2 villages promoting CBT and a former coordinator of community tourism programs. Two community members shared about the negative and positive impact of CBT on themselves and their community. Although there are negative events in which tourists do not respect the community, there are positive impacts that CBT made them recognize the importance of environmental protection and create new livelihood and jobs. On the other hand, from the perspective of a tour operator, it is important for all actors, the community, tourists, and tour operator to benefit from CBT under the principle of win-win-win. So most of the participants answered that they were satisfied with this webinar and found it useful. So next is a workshop. So this workshop was held on October 10th as one session of the training series for the community conducted by KPF. So due to the emergent need, so we extended it to another session on October 12th for a deeper discussion. And participant was a core member of KPF and the people of Itai Village. So in this workshop, we created the following content for the purpose of making a participant understand the concept and importance of participatory development. A minigame of designing a dream homestay was held to help participants feel the sense of participatory decision-making by asking each group to discuss and come up with their own homestay design. We then gave a presentation to explain the definition, necessity, and benefit of participatory development. To illustrate, we introduced an example of a rural development project in Senegal, Africa, so supported by JICA. Based on this case study, we emphasize how the community's needs should be assessed in the first place, and the activities should be developed by the communities themselves. Once the participant understood the concept of participation, we used Einstein's ladder of student participation to facilitate an assessment by the local people about their current level of participation in KPF's activity. Afterwards, a generous amount of time was set for the community to share why they felt like that and raise their opinion on how their level of participation can be improved. The most successful part of this workshop was that we provided a space for community members to raise their voice by introducing the concept of participatory development. They gained more self-confidence and became more willing to raise the voice. KPF core members also wanted to listen more to the voices of the community and improve communication. And what was impressive was the KPF member held an emergency meeting after the workshop, even though it was midnight. So they discussed how to address the concern raised by community by the workshop. And currently, so KPF's core members are reviewing their mission, strategies, and procedure to be truly participatory and engage with the community. On the other hand, so we also observed some young members of the community straightforwardly expressed their disagreement with KPF in several social media posts, which hadn't happened before. So next is Soze. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Shinpei-san, for explaining about our activities and results. And beside that, we also want to share that we came up with further analysis of what happened in order to provide more knowledge to KPF and hopefully other social enterprise or nonprofit organization working with communities of ethnic minorities in Vietnam. Because in the first place, KPF defined that the community lack the capacity to participate, but beside that, there are many different other barriers to the effective participation of the community. And the first one we found out was the very big difference in language and education background. We found out, according to one of our surveys with the local people, about what would make them feel unsafe or uncomfortable participating. And also that what was we observed in the workshop that we organized. And it was apparent that it was very difficult for the local community to understand the concept coming from outsiders, such as sustainable development. And therefore, it would take time and a lot of patience in order to truly convey the message to the people, and which was why we had to extend our workshop by one more session, and also design the workshop in the more experiential way. And also due to this limit, it was hard for the community to raise their voice even though they wanted to, because they didn't have enough vocabulary to express their idea. And the second barrier was the lack of effective and timely communication channels with KPF members. We found out because during our workshop, it was expressed by the community that there were a lot of accumulated dissatisfactions and misunderstanding that before they weren't able to communicate to KPF. And they shared that because the KPF member didn't spend enough time in the community, so they didn't feel trusted. And also, even though there is one member, one focal point from KPF, staying with the local community, just because she is still very young, that the other member of KPF didn't really listen to her voice when she represented the community. And another local man who was working with the community and KPF, who tried to convey KPF message to the community, was the one who also benefit from the tourism activity. So the community didn't really trust when it was him who raised the voice. And the last main barrier was the manipulation and lack of deep listening from KPF, which is also connected to the first two barriers. Because according to the local people and the focal points, it seems like the KPF leader had been using complicated language when communicating with the local community. So the local community feel overwhelmed and they couldn't counter-argue due to their lack of vocabulary. And also it created the impression of power hierarchy, that the local community feel they had to obey KPF, therefore they were hesitant to raise their voice. And also from KPF, they constantly refer to the local community as lack of awareness, and they didn't really listen to the people concerned. So the community was not able to really convey their voice. And next slide, please. And also we found out the barrier within KPF themselves to engage with the community, because knowing is different from being. After the two webinars, we found out that the KPF member, they said that they knew about all of the CBT principles, but in fact, what they have done didn't really follow this principle. And also they keep saying that they respect and consider the community as equal partners, but when the community share from their point, if it was opposite the agenda of KPF, then they disregard the people concerned. And also another challenge for KPF is now they have just transformed from a voluntary organization to a social enterprise. And now there's a risk of mission drift due to the need to get revenue and profit for their own maintenance, and hierarchy decision making because of the concentration of power in the hand of the CEO. Next slide, please. And the lesson we learned from our activities as well as recommendations. The first is highlighting the power of the beneficiary voice to have the social enterprise reflect. Because even when we brought in external experts, the enterprise, they didn't really realize their problem until the community got the chance to raise a voice. And then we got that emergency meeting by KPF, because now they realized that there was a problem. And but that was thanks to the fact that the community are now like being aware of their own rights, and there is safe and encouraging space for them to express their opinion. And we recommend that there should be a communication mechanism between stakeholders and highlighting the local youth and authority, because the local youth have been proving to be the bridge between the rest of the community and KPF due to their higher level of education and better vocabulary. And the authority can act as like a protection mechanism for the community as well. And the last, we think that there should be mechanism to ensure constant reflection, because we cannot just depend on KPF members' self-reflection, but there should be other mechanisms such as more periodical meetings and listening more to the voice of the community. And there should be like a community tourism management board with members from the communities themselves and the local authority as suggested by CVT experts. Next slide, please. So to conclude, we want to say that developing CBT models is a good remedy to prevent impacts of mass tourism. However, following the models alone is not enough. And also it was not sufficient just for development workers or social enterprise just to have good intentions. And for CBT model to deliver desirable outcomes and truly benefit the communities, we need mutual understanding, respect, and close engagement among key stakeholders, especially from the community themselves. And we believe that our project contributed to this cause not only by equipping stakeholders with awareness and knowledge about CBT and participatory development, but also supporting them to discover other barriers to their effective and participatory engagement so that they can improve further. So that was about our project. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dang, Ayako, and Shimpe. And now we'll listen to the next group. So we have John Jeffrey Seng, Lapay, Kelly Nang Ong, Kasuki, Kin Nilar, and Pan Su Ong.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone, professors, classmates, and guests joining online. Firstly, may I present our Capstone team member. Our group has 5 members, 4 students from Myanmar, Kelly, Ken, Pansu, and myself, Jeffrey, and student from Japan, Kazuki. Next slide, please. The ultimate goal of our project is community members in the targeted area receive benefit fairly from the community-based tourism operating in their land. And the immediate outcomes we try to achieve is participants will be able to implement or lead the community-based tourism packages, which is integrated with sustainability and responsibility concept. In order to achieve the goal and the outcome, we explore the problems and challenges of the development of community-based tourism villages in the targeted area, Danube Self-Administrative Zone in Southern Shan State in Myanmar. There were 2 main activities in our project, the in-depth interviews and a workshop with tourism practitioners. The central idea of our Capstone project is getting knowledge from the people and conducting a workshop where the project contributes theories and present the findings from our studies to brainstorm for the better options generating to move the CBD forward. Next slide, please. Yes, may I also express our gratitude to our local partner called Myanmar Responsible Tourism Institute, MRTI. This project is jointly implemented with them. And in our project, we apply 2 theory as a main guidance, Balter's model and Ostrom's co-production model. These are the 2 theory that we apply. And the inspiration for this project is in starting from 2014, the new self-administrative zones, Yuangan and Pindia, they established 2 CBD villages, but there are lots of criticism that CBD villages community doesn't have benefit, but instead most of those benefits go to the operator, tour operator from outside of the community, and the local community situation is impersed. At the same time, because of the political instability and global pandemics, there are lots of negative impact. Despite the chaotic context, people in Janu, the CBD villages, they are still putting their effort to move their CBD projects. To continue presenting presenting the finding, Kelly, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. So now I will present the nature of the new CBD according to our findings of our field study and co-production workshop study as well. So as Jeff mentioned before, the NU has 2 formally established CBD named Sita in Village CBD and Binzeng Village CBD. It was initiated by the government that the goal of tourism sector development through CBD as an alternative tourism along with community development of local residents. So according to our field study, the nature of CBD is like a business cooperated by a village committee and investor. Generally outsiders, like investors are more from the outsider, like, yeah. So our finding highlights that how CBD started establishing its quiet top-down and external initiatives, a lot of external initiatives based in a rush manner establishment when the local community's readiness was quite limited. So next slide, please. So to be able to run CBD functionally, a local community who participate in the new CBD have been trained in terms of technical and knowledge assistance provided by both government initiatives and, of course, different third-party organizations support, such as GIZ, ITC, and including our project partner, MRTI, Myanmar Responsible Tourism Institution, and many more other third-party organizations involved in the new CBD development. Okay, these are some tourism attractions, activities, and services from the new area. I will just show the pictures of tourist attraction service. Okay, so let's see the how local community perceive the extent of CBD. So the general understanding of a local community, especially who involved in CBD project or business, is that they see CBD as an opportunity for the local community to earn and to generate more income, alternative income, while promoting the new culture and tradition, handicrafts, and of course, local products, mainly tea and coffee and untouched natural attraction and conserving environment purpose. And next slide, please. So regarding benefit sharing systems in the new CBD, financial profits generated from CBD, 30% of the profits goes to village CBD committee in order to run community development activities, such as village development like building roads, installing electricity, etc. So, however, most participants from the study informed that the benefits from the current CBDs were not visible yet. So due to many reasons and many discussion and collaboration is needed. So these are the general findings of how we understanding how partner, local community, and our project team understanding the nature of the new CBD. Now, Kinila will deliver findings based on theoretical framework. Thank you.
So thank you, Kelly. So when we put the theory links to our Capstone project, so when the tourism development process in the new is trying to elaborate within the theories of Mandala model, So all the situations reported from our study indicate that we are now in the involvement stage. So it means that we're trying to, conclude very, challenges because, these and that informations are kind of, confusing. Should we conclude in that way or this way? Something like that. So then, since we use the co-production and participatory way also during our study, so we're trying to put our findings in draft version into our knowledge co-production workshop. So to validate with the ideas and consultation about how we reflect the tourism in the new in our workshop with local partner as well as the local communities who really working in the tourism sector. So we came up with the 3 basis observation or maybe the reasoning. First is that we're trying to see that community participation is, we reported about community participation is in passive way, which means that the villagers are working under the leadership of the private investor that previously my friend Kelly mentioned, and also the new government. But nonetheless, some degree of the new locally arranged trucking tools we found some kinds of bottom-up approach. So which means it's really reflecting our Butter model. So Butter even explained in his theory so in involvement stage, you may observe some degree of remaining stakeholder from the local that has been establishing running the tourism activity starting from the exploration stage. So this is, even though the Butter is argued for many literature like tourism destination is very you cannot be directly reflect, but we found kind of the right reflection there. And also that we, my friend Kelly already mentioned, we found the presence of external entities like the new government, the new investor, and also the other is technical support organizations. So, and another one is that we're trying to see the types of tourist group. So we commonly think that individual and mass tourist group and explorer groups, which are commonly seen in involvement stage. And actually this is reflecting when we talk and discuss within the local trucking guides and operators, we found those in this. So this helps us to conclude, okay, we are now in involvement stage. And also what else we can do before we move to the development stage, how we'll make sure community-based tourism effort. So when we put to the co-production lens, so even though we do every process in co-production manner, but we're trying to see the use of the theory or concept, how is this really happening in the CBD. So we conclude with that we have very hard to correlate, is this true co-production, because we analyze the level of participation. So as I previously mentioned, that it's passive, and even lacks of the inclusiveness is reported very often in the study and also in the workshop discussion with among very different stakeholders, especially, for example, like small stakeholder like freelance tracking guide and also villagers are not invited to a workshop organized by the government for the tourism matter. So in this in stakeholder groups are more influenced in tourism matter. So this is obviously reported in our study, throughout the study. Another one is the prerequisite, like often repeatedly mentioned about in co-production, we require the prerequisite, so like skills and capacity in the community to be sure the empowerment in the participation, right? So, but we found it's a participatory, to have a participatory, so the capacity is that skill that we have a community is very insufficient. So this is another supporting idea to conclude we stay very hard to say the co-production tourism. Another one is that we have to think about co-production theory when we put in the service sector. We have to think about it from the perspective of the traveler side. So what is the effort from the traveler, the service taker, So we found that tourists for the local, especially for the local community, CBD, the sense of CBD is still new to the local traveler. So they still have to learn how to value the existence of the CBD and appreciations. So these and those requirements lead to some kinds of challenges that I'm showing here, like so linked to the problems of ownership sense, even though the contract tells 50-50 we own, we don't feel ownership sense, and also the tourism management issues after we really ran in the CBD. So that is the we found and observed. And also another one is that we still have to think about another statement that raised by my previous friends, like she mentioned, that is the CBD benefit is very not obvious. So this tells us to think many aspects to discuss. Like first time, yes, the CBD is very new to us, and even for the new, it's very newly established. So it's very take time to see the positive impact of the CBD. And the second is also the awareness. Level of awareness is we stay insatisfactory. So that's why we cannot see fully participation from the community. Third, the COVID-19, which is an expected crisis for us, the whole universe. So that's why we need to think about how we will proceed during the COVID-19 for the tourism matter. Then lastly, additional punch to the Myanmar people is a, military coup, so that it is very challenging for the new people how to continue their tourism activity and even CVD for that kinds of radical change. So each one impact one another when we discussing about the sustainable and responsible tourism in the new sub-administrative zone. So this is how we conclude. But in next slide, our friend Kazuki-san will continue the remaining analysis and findings.
Okay, so thank you, King. So due to the time limit, I really briefly present 3 discussion points during the interviews and workshops. So we found that raising awareness of CBT is one of a critical point because we often hear that participation and the environment as key word. Participation is not only the involvement and payment to the community, but also some participants emphasize that meaningful participation consolidates that community's unity. But at the same time, some conservative villagers also mentioned that flexibility is essential for the tourism practitioners because some claim that it is also important to be open that environmental conservation should be a priority rather than the CBT initiatives. So this is a crucial point that we must be addressed because to be aware that CBT awareness, that to develop the shared understanding is a critical point. So in this context, we share that idea, responsible management, and do no harm principle during the workshop. So next slide, please. Okay. Then during the workshop and interviews, we identified 5 ideas and 5 top priorities. First is marketing, and next is education, and third is culture and governance and human resources. These challenges are shared during the workshop and we discussed together. Then next task would be how among the stakeholders we choose that what is the next feasible priorities to tackle. Then third point is transition from agriculture and agritourism. So it is not yet reached that a wide agreement to have done government, what extent we should transit to from the agriculture to agritourism. This is one of crucial points to discuss in this community. So next one, talk about lesson learned and suggestion.
Thank you, Kazuki. Now let me present the final part of our presentation. After making collaborative effort on the study of CBD in the new area, we came up with some lesson learned and also suggestions for the future co-productive and responsive community-based tourism. So based on research finding, we have summarized 3 key lessons learned that are suggested to be improved. So next slide, please. So the first one we found is that the role of government is essential to reinforce the platform and development that motivate the more sustainable computation in the new CBD area. For instance, the government can give rewarding to the tour operators, such as providing certificate for sustainable tourism that really recognize the concrete achievement for their sustainable practice and responsible tourism initiative as well. And the government is also essential to start working on the tourism operation in this military coup and other COVID-19 situation. And then they're also a key actor to provide tourism infrastructure, as Kelly mentioned, including electricity, and to strengthen the ownership value of CBD in their community. So next slide, please. So the second lesson learned we found is that, the presence of the third-party organizations play the vital role in building the community capacity in CBT, as my friend already mentioned. in the new area, since the community has less awareness on technical expertise, so the tourism institutes such as GIZ, ITC, or MITI can continue to provide the technical support, especially like, for example, marketing strategy, packaging of the local product, and preparing food, healthy food and clean food to attract the tourists for more visitors. So yeah, next slide, please. So this is the third one, is a true one for this part of the new area. In the new tourism resilience is much more dependent on the Rwangan Tourism Development Organization, so which we call YTO. So why is because the YTO is a bridge between technical support third-party organizations such as GIZ, ITC, MRTI, and the community. So they play in between. And they also advocate for the tourism company to comply with the sustainable tourism standards. So their point is crucial here. Therefore, in the new area, creating market or investigating new tourism product or destination should be done in collaborative manner between YTO and the stakeholder we have already mentioned before. So overall, we suggest, reinforcing these 3 lessons learned to be can lead the improving community-based tourism in the new area. So thank you so much, everyone. This is the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful presentations. And now we will invite our 2 invited panelists, Dr. Randy Tuanyo and Attorney Junfe, to share with us their comments and inputs. First to the first set of presenters, and then we'll shift to the second presenters.
I don't know, Junfe, you want to go ahead? Kamit ka, Junfe. Sige, I think I can go ahead. Sige. Well, I think congratulations to both presentations. I enjoyed learning a little bit also more about community-based tourism, and it's a little bit different from when we ask our economic students to develop projects, and including the one on sustainable tourism. So and I think how you integrated this issue of community participation and knowledge generation in your discipline and also in your study is very good. I think my first question for both presentations is, what are the priors that the communities might have made? So in the case of Vietnam, when the foundation, for example, determined that community-based tourism is the project which the communities will have to undertake because of the loss of livelihoods. I think the question is, how is this usually determined, and what are the factors, for example, that went into deciding on community-based tourism? I guess really providing that seminar on community-based tourism so that the communities would gain more knowledge on it. Would be very useful. But I was wondering, what are the other? I mean, if there are other factors that went into that decision of did the community already suffer a loss of agricultural production, and maybe the only viable economic activity in the area is community-based tourism. So that's I guess my major comment, and also for the sake also for the second presentation. Okay, yeah, I think it's response. How will this go, Dr. Navarra? I mean, will I just
Yes,
comments and
Dr.
then...
comments. You give your questions, comments, and then afterwards, the groups will respond to your comments. Since your first question was addressed to both, no? So now we have first the group of Dang, and then afterwards, then other group will also respond.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments and question. I would like to respond on behalf of my group that actually when we first approached the organization, our partners, they have already been doing CBT in the community for a few years, and it started because in Vietnam now mass tourism is really like sweeping all over the place, and after they already conquered like very famous and easy to access places, now there are like real estate brokers and like hospitality and tourism companies are seeking for other areas, and the areas that we are supporting, they used to they used to suffer like from a very heavy flood, which was why our partners came to the area to support in the beginning. And then they noticed the risks of, both the risks of mass tourism to invade that area as well, because it was a very beautiful area and located near another mass tourism destinations. And also our partner realized the potential to improve the living standard of the people in the local area by introducing CBT. And I have to emphasize not as alternative livelihood, but it's just like an extra source of income for the people while they still do their original work, such as farming or like crafting, and such activities will be integrated in the CBT model as well. So that was how Itai Village became like the partner with our partners like KPF in developing community-based tourism in the first place. But also it was a decision that was made mostly from the side of our partner of the social enterprise, but not really, I have to say that not initially, it was not really from the need or the initiative from the local people themselves. And I hope that already answer your concern.
Yeah, were there, just as a follow-up, were there other, for example, I mean, so what you're saying is that it could be something that's good because it's being undertaken in different communities that can help the communities. Were there other, for example, other alternatives that the foundation actually considered also as well, and or was it because, well, all of the communities in that area are undertaking community-based tourism, then therefore that community, what's also important? I mean, just do it because it's being done in other areas, so just do it also in the same area.
Yeah, so like I mentioned that actually when we approach, they already established that models, but I think that if they in the first place they ask the community about their needs, then there can be other alternatives than CBT. But the CBT project was initiated from the perspective of the social enterprise themselves when they saw a lot of tourism potential in the area, and in their own internal community like organization, they had people with experience in developing tourism product, and that was why they suggested to the local people in the first place to establish CBT as an alternative source of income for the local people to raise their living standard after they have been like swept by a massive flood and affect a lot of their life.
If Sir Junfei won't mind, I'll just ask just one more follow-up.
Okay.
question.
Right.
Sorry, I just the last. Okay. I think one of the insights that you can also, well, this is for this is more comment. One of the insights that I think you can get, and it's in the text in your manuscript, in your paper, that it seems to be that the relationship between the foundation and the community is also reflective of the issue of how the foundation actually treats community. One, I think what you showed, in the paper, that the way that the project is handled, is reflective of the relationship between the foundation and the community. So what this means might be that are there also implications, you think, on how this community-based tourism project could be handled better in the future? You said that it seems to be that in your paper that there's this foundation and it's doing a lot of this work, but sometimes doesn't really consider what's happening. And I think the intervention that you made was a means of trying to let the people understand better what the community-based tourism is about.
Yes, yes. If I may add to
go ahead.
Dr. Randy. Yes, I think you identified, well, I think this was a very useful project. No, your activities are, I think, really helpful to the communities. And so, yeah, just like what Dr. Randy said, from their learnings from those activities, because you said that one of your findings is that they became more interested. No? They now have also a better understanding of what community-based tourism is. So, did you proceed to make any action plans, no, based on this increased interest and understanding? Because while those two results are very important, no, I think you cannot really institutionalize them and ensure sustainability if you don't come up with action plans based on those better understanding and greater interest. No? But so I think this is related to the question of Dr. Randy. No? So what do they do now? Now that they have realized that the problem really is on both sides. No? On the side of the KPF, they already know about the principles of the CBT, but it seems that they have been unwilling to actually implement these principles because power is concentrated on the CEO. No? And then on the side of the community, initially, according to the KPF, the problem is that they are not confident, they don't have the skills, but actually, as it turned out, it was more of lack of communication and also the lack of willingness on the part of the KPF, no, to share authority, share decision-making power. So what do you do now? No, what now are going to be your action plans? No, based on the results of these 3 activities, no, the 2 webinars and the workshop. Okay, so yeah, let me just emphasize now that those 3 activities I think are very important, and I congratulate you on holding these activities, and also on making sure that that there's space for the community to actually sort their problems with with the KPF. So I think you provided that venue, and that's a very important thing, because you said that this project, the CBT, has been ongoing for several years, and it's only now that they're actually coming up with this mechanism and talking to each other. And sometimes it's more difficult to remedy a already bad ongoing situation, no, than to start anew. Okay, so I think that's the challenge for you, because this the CBT initiative has been there for a long time, and yet it's only now that they're actually trying to create a venue for them to talk to each other. So firstly, I would like to congratulate you on this project, on the 3 activities that you held, and also on the results of these activities. And I was very happy to actually see you implement this, because I was involved also in the project design, as one of the lecturers in the project design course. So I was very excited to see how this will turn out, and I'm very happy it turned out quite well. And so going back to the question, what now are the actionable plans, given that you have identified these problems between the KPF and the community?
Yeah, so may I, yeah, thank you so much for your compliments and also your concern. So actually, we had to say that it was very hard for us to really sit down, like according to our initial plan with KPF, to sort out their future strategy, because due to the COVID situation and a lot of the members, they were so stressful with their own business, and we couldn't get them to join like focus group discussion. But apparently, actually right now, in the upcoming days, they are having like internal meetings, a very big one, where they actually discuss on restructure their organization to differentiate between the enterprise part and the foundation part, so that and to elect a different decision maker, a different president of the foundation, so that he will not be in like double power with the enterprise. And so on the benefit will the profit part of the enterprise and the foundation will not be conflict with each other. So that is their plan for now. And they are also in the upcoming meetings, they will also discuss about other mechanism to better serve the communities. So that is what they are currently holding right now. And due to the time constraint of the project, we were not able to really witness how it would turn out. But we can really feel the political will amongst the member in how to really serve the community in an effective way. And they really sort out that meetings and have a very straightforward and transparent discussion with each other. So that is what we are observing, and we hope that they will come up with a mechanism that would work better in the future.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing that they will now try to delineate those 2 entities. You have the foundation and then the enterprise, because right now the line is blurred. Is that right? Okay, so. And then have you heard who they think should be heading the enterprise? Would it be the community? Because we're talking about a community-based tourism. Is going to be someone from the community, one of the youth leaders maybe, or one of the women leaders? Is that the plan? Or is it going?
Yeah, so actually from before, they already, after joining the webinar, they already made it clear that in the future, they will try to hand over the tourism project to the communities themselves. And now they are currently having a few young people in supporting a few young people in the community to learn more about hospitality in order to operate in the future. So they had that plan, but how they really implement the plan is still a question even for us, because they have just realized how much of the power they had over the community, and they are now still like discussing how to shift the situation. So we still have to wait how it turns out in the future, but they are aware, at least that they are aware the whole management and ownership of the project will be handed over to the young people in the local community in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, you know, that by delineating these two entities, you know, it signals that the KPF is willing to hand over, you know, their authority over the enterprise, you know, which is really the core of this this project, you know, which is really at the core of this project. So they are willing to hand over their authority, their power, and that's a good thing, no? And because a community, as you noted in your manuscript, even after the 3 activities, they were still concerned, no, that whether KPF will actually listen to them. So I think if you separate now the 2 entities, I think they will really actually have real power. They don't have to worry about, you know, getting the you know, the nod or the permission of KPF, because it will now be controlled by them, this separate entity, you know, this enterprise. No? So I think that would be a good thing, and I hope that you really pursue this, no, really maybe hold an action planning based on your 3 activities, because those 3 activities, okay, will be more useful if they are translated into action plans, no? Both for the community and also the KPF, and that's how you will really ensure impact and sustainability of this project of yours. So again, congratulations to the group of Zayn. So can I continue to the other group? Doc Randy, we have a follow-up question to the group of Zay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. On the part of the Danu project, no. So you said in your manuscript that your intended outcome is for the community to lead, no, the CBT. So it's sort of similar to the first project, the first group's project. Your intention is for the community to lead, but the part where you wanted to contribute is on the data gathering and analysis, no, of the current state of the CBT in Danu, no? And then you stop there. You stop there, and so in a sense, the first group went a step further, because they actually had this workshop to provide a venue for the stakeholders, for the various stakeholders to talk to each other. So I think this is very useful research. Also, it's very detailed, and it can be made useful, if you actually translate this to more activities. So now that you have identified the main stakeholders, based on your 3 lessons. You said that government plays a very important role. You also said that the YTO plays an important role, and you identify what these roles are, and then you said you also need a third party. And so I would suggest that based on these very important findings, you ask the community, ask them about these lessons that you have identified, because my understanding is right now it's only you as researchers who have identified these lessons, right? Or did you identify this with the communities?
Actually, Professor, we have our two main activities, the whole Capstone project. So the first one is we did the qualitative research, which is even though small, we came out with understanding on what is happening in the new community. Then we are not conclude by ourselves and not even with only the partner. We go for the knowledge co-production workshops, which is another main activities for us. So we validate our findings. We even consult with our findings with the people that involved in our survey, our interview, and also the key stakeholder working in the new tourism. So like it's kind of like all the informations and all the lesson learned, and even for the further good activities, which can be tailored in the future. Those are already consult and discuss and brainstorm with the communities during the knowledge co-production workshop, Professor. Yes, so we further, after this capstone, we will translate the paper into Burmese language, and then we will deliver this or the report, like which will be more appropriate in the terms of local people, and we will deliver to the local, each individual, and also the key stakeholder who are working in the community, not only the technical expert, like as we mentioned, the technical expert key group, right? So we will also deliver our translated report to those communities, because they are the key already connected the relationship. So we are kind of like telling, hey, what we observe, we are seeing this trend, maybe we better fix and take care, like that, like the professor. We did the knowledge co-production workshop with the community as well.
Can I add something? Can I add something to Kanila? Yeah, we in the co-production workshop, we also had like the presentation section on the findings that take like 45 minutes, I think, because they are really interested. First, we plan to just give the brief information, but the participants are deeply involved in the discussions, and we are doing like a validating. For example, I remember like, okay, community are benefiting 30%. That was in the interview, but in accurate time, like 2 to 3 participants just point out that no, that was wrong. That could be like 15% only, something like that. So there are a lot of discussions process on that, and we even say like, okay, this is a baby that we bear together between the Capstone team, MRTI, and the participants. So the participants are also coming from the diverse, I mean, like tourism industry. I will say from the CBD side, from the tour guide and tourism operation, and handicap, and also coffee tour, and yeah, there are a lot of people. So we are feeling quite satisfied with those very brief findings. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so these 3 main lessons that you identified, these were identified with the communities, or were the communities merely your sources of information, or did they agree that firstly the role of the government is crucial? Did they agree to you? Did you agree with them, or did they agree with you that yes, third party technical assistance is another crucial area, no, that you will have to explore, and finally that you need the help of YTO, no? So if that was the case, that's good, no? So, but if that was not done, maybe you can go back, and then you can talk to them, no? And you then agree to translate these findings into, again, actionable plans, no? So based on the idea that the role of the government is crucial because they can provide infrastructure and rewards, no, incentives. Okay, what would the community now do about it? Okay, what would the government do about it? No? And also based on the finding that technical assistance, do no harm approaches are crucial, then what would you do with third parties? What can they do to help? No? So you may have to come up with very specific action plans, you know, as in the same suggestion that I made for the first group. No? And yes, because I think these are very, very useful lessons that you have identified, and you have identified the most crucial stakeholders as well, and now you need to put things together and translate them into action plans, action plans for the community, and that's really the best way to institutionalize anything and ensure sustainability, when you have specific action plans for this. But this is a very important research, a very important jump off point, for really improving the CBT in the Danu area. So I congratulate you on that.
Yes. Yes, Professor, for your comments. Yeah, we were trying to integrate more actions plan, but again, just to add a little bit more context of Myanmar, now is that we have another additional challenge, compared to our friends teams. Like we have a political instability is very huge. So that's why even during the capstone, we put the very high mood of conflict sensitivity when we communicate with different stakeholders. For example, like our partner has strongly suggested not to be expressed on the social media name, because like if the military notice, that this group is actively working, they will be, very worried to be pressured to collaborate with military group. So it will be very difficult to communicate with the local community. So that's why like we very put this high mood or sensitivity mood when we communicate with the different stakeholder. And again, for the real action plan, yeah, that's why we tailor specifically. If we communicate with the third-party organization like technical groups, we will tailor our message in that way. If we communicate with the local villager groups, so we tailor in that way. But for us, even when we put the government should this and that, but for us as a student in the Capstone, and even for our local partner, MRTI, very hard position to communicate with the government, because we very difficult to who is labeled as government right now in Myanmar. So that's why, yeah, this is the additional information that I would like to add for your information too, Professor. Thank you.
May I add again? Just 1 minute. Yeah. So I think thank you, Professor, for giving like the action plan for that. And this is the main aim that we all make our partner, our participant, and also we aim for the next step, because for MRTI, we had a history before. Maybe 2 years ago, there were also internship group from the student, from the master student, and they implement the Capstone project, and that become a new tourism project in that area. So they have like very high, willingness to make something meaningful for this project. So I think that is very useful, that we can go for the next step. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just add a brief comment and maybe which the group that you might want to consider. This is coming from Prof. Professor Junfe's comment earlier. I think what you listed in your paper on the considerations in terms of culture, human resources, governance, is very important, and these are some of the considerations that have to go into the choice of the livelihood program, which is tourism, community-based tourism, and its design, and also, and therefore what its plans are. So I guess my suggestion is you may just want, if you may want to improve the paper further, just follow Prof. Jun's suggestion and maybe identify what are the specific plans for this, following the concentrations on the 5 elements that you have said in your paper.
Thank you, Dr. Randy. Do we also have, yeah? Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes. From our work, doing community-driven housing, what has usually worked for us in our engagements with various stakeholders, the communities, the LGUs, the communities and their NGO partners, the LGUs and us, SHAFC and the other national government agencies, is clarity in our functions. No? And usually we put that into writing, no? Through like performance partnership agreements or contracts. No? So everything will be in black and white. No? So that, but that's just one strategy. No? It depends on the context of the community. No? And this is for both the two groups. No? I would suggest that if it's possible in your context, you come up with written performance partnership contracts, no? Among the various stakeholders. So it's either between KPF, for instance, and the community that it works with, DANU, the DANU community and the local government, okay? And the signing of these contracts can also be very good events, no? To good events that can be used to rally the support of everyone. No? People like these events. No? Even online, these events can be held even online. No? And people appreciate it when they actually have these events because they actually mark milestones, and also they ensure the commitment of all the stakeholders. No? When you put things into writing, but it depends on the context of your community, you know, whether they are comfortable with that, you know, with having something written. Sometimes merely having regular meetings or grievance mechanisms would work more for everyone. No? So it depends. It depends on your context. In our experience, it helps us to have performance partnership contracts, no? With the various stakeholders that we work with, so that also we can avoid misunderstanding in the future, no? Because everything is there in the contract, in the contract of the community. And you can call it a contract or some other term, no? Because some people are afraid of the term contract because it seems to imply legal responsibility, you know, that you might go to jail if you don't comply with something. But you know, come up with a document, no? Document or a mechanism where people really clarify their functions and their targets, no? And how they will accomplish those targets. For us, it's through memorandums of agreement or performance contracts.
Thank you, Attorney Junfe and Doc Randy. But you still have other concerns or questions? Okay. So I think we still have time to entertain one question from Facebook Live. So there's this one viewer who's interested in Vietnam's project. So his question is, I'm just curious if you're able to know what the community actually wants, since the organizations who are supposed to help them were not able to deeply grasp this. So who'd like to take on that question from the Vietnam group?
Yeah, maybe I will answer, because actually the response from the community, the dynamic were in Vietnamese, so only I were able to observe. And yeah, actually from our second workshop, where we invited member from the community, and also from the workshops that we did, the people, they really appreciate what the organization brought into them still, because now they had more awareness about environmental protections, and also they really love having tourists coming, because they share that now the people in the community, including like old people or the children, they really enjoyed having tourists, and they became much more confident in communicating, even in Vietnamese, because they use a different language. but there are still like some disagreement with the way KPFs had been working, because the benefit are now only falling to a few households, and that is actually in CBT principle not recommended, because the whole community should be benefit. And that is now the current concern of the community, but we were glad that they are now able to really raise that to KPF, and they clearly said that they prioritize the bonding of the community over having some extra income. So for the next step, I think it depends actually on KPF to work further with the community to identify their current real need, and also the mechanism on how to benefit everyone in the community. And I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, Dang. I think you covered it well. Okay, so if there are no more questions and concerns from our panelists, also from our viewers on Facebook Live and those who are here in the Zoom room, I think we can now end this cluster, this session. And again, congratulations for the two groups. No? The presentations were well prepared, and you did well in responding to the panelists. And of course, thank you so much to Doc Randy and to Attorney Junfe, because you're able to come here and participate and assist the groups in further enhancing their manuscript and also the project engagement. So this afternoon, we still have our third cluster. It's the last set of presentations. So we will resume at 2 p.m. and we'll be using the same Zoom link. So please come back to the Zoom room, and we'll see you again later. So for those who are in the Philippines, we can now have our lunch. And for those in Costa Rica, I think it's dinner. No? And also for those in US. Okay, so thank you so much.
Midnight snack.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.